Chapter 563. Just stroll around the ship. Well, let's meet at the restaurant for dinner. Is it Miss Ren? Luoqiu nodded. At this time, he and Yu Yi were already in the atrium of the bow. Baiyu cruise ship had not officially set sail yet, so the wind was not strong. There were still some tourists boarding the ship. It would probably take more than an hour before they could set off. Calculating the time, it would probably be late at night when Baiyu cruise ship sailed to the estuary. It was estimated that they would only see the sea tomorrow morning. However, many tourists who boarded early in the morning had already come out of their rooms and began to tour. Not far from Luoqiu, there should be employees of the same company. At this time, they were gathering and getting ready to take a group photo before departure. Luoqiu generally did not like crowded places, so he pointed to the second floor of the atrium and said, "Let's go up." Yu Yi said at this time, "Master, there is a thief over there." Luoqiu looked over. In the crowd, he saw a man about 27 or 28 years old, wearing casual clothes and a camera around his neck. He skillfully took the valuables from the other party's bag easily when he bumped into people. Looking at the man's proud expression, it was probably because he had a good harvest before the ship set sail. But the thief suddenly became alert and looked in the direction of Boss Luo and Yu Yi. It was just that for the club master and servant who had almost no sense of presence, the thief did not notice anything. He frowned and secretly scolded himself for being suspicious. He quickly left this place, intending to find another place to commit the crime. "He is a careful person," Luoqiu said casually and walked toward the sightseeing bridge on the second floor of the cruise ship in the atrium. There was a warning sign erected in front of the building that said it was not open for the time being. It was said that there was a swimming pool and a small amusement park above, but it was probably not ready yet. So, Boss Luo and his servant girl were easily uninvited guests for a while. But it seemed that they were not the only uninvited guest. When Luoqiu boarded the platform, he realized that someone had arrived before him. The other party was about 30 or 40 years old. He was wearing a wrinkled suit without a bow tie. At this time, he was sneakily hiding under the third-floor sightseeing bridge, knocking. The man was holding a small notebook in his hand, and no one knew what he was writing. "This place isn't open yet. What are you doing here?" At this moment, a deep voice appeared behind the sneaky middle-aged man, giving him a fright. The middle-aged man turned around and saw an old man in a uniform. This old man was the one that Boss Luo had seen struggling with someone at the dock. Luoqiu showed a hint of interest and approached the two. The middle-aged man frowned and said, Are you the captain of the Baiyu cruise ship?" "I am." "The old man." The captain nodded as if he didn't want to talk too much with the man. He said directly, "This place is not open until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you are bored, you can stay in the cabin. There are enough entertainment facilities and shops inside." The middle-aged man said calmly, "Captain, can you make an exception? This is my business card. My surname is Qian Guoyang." Qian Guoyang took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to the old captain. The old captain frowned and glanced at it. He seemed a little surprised and said, "Are you from the Carnival Cruise Ship Group?" Qian Guoyang laughed and said, "Well, I am an engineer of the company. To be honest with you, the company is planning to design a new cruise ship recently, so I plan to come to the Baiyu cruise ship to look for inspiration. The Baiyu cruise ship will be retired after returning, so this opportunity is rare. Forgive me, forgive me." The captain shook his head and said, "Every place has its own rules. If I say that this place is not open, then it is not open. Please leave. If you want to look for inspiration, you don't need to wait for a while." Qian Guoyang still smiled and said, "Captain, this Baiyu cruise ship is also imported from our group. It is produced by our group. You see, can't you make an exception?" The old captain said coldly, "So what if it is produced by you? The Baiyu cruise ship has been sold to our company long ago. It is now our company's private property. I asked you to leave immediately. Do you hear me? Captain, your company and our company have been cooperating for a long time. This is not good, right? Do you want me to call someone to ask you to go down? The old captain said heavily. Qian Guoyang saw that he could not be stubborn, so he gave in and said, Okay, I will come back later. There is no need to make everyone look bad. With that said, Qian Guoyang put the notebook into the bag and turned away from the old captain's gaze. However, he snorted softly and muttered, Old thing, you don't know what's good for you. When the old captain saw Qian Guoyang walking down, he breathed a sigh of relief. However, he took a mop from the side and wiped the traces left by Qian Guoyang's shoes on the deck when he left. However, it did not take long for the old captain to be full of cold sweat and his lips were a little purple. The old captain took a few deep breaths and sighed again. He sat down and looked ahead in a daze. He said desolately, The old man and the machine are broken. I can't do it anymore. After a long time, the old captain stood up, patted the place where he was sitting, and walked into the Bayou cruise ship from there. Master, if this captain goes to sea, I am afraid it will be a little difficult. Yu Ye's blue eyes flashed with a faint light. She whispered beside Luoqiu, As for this Qian Guoyang, he was lying just now. It doesn't seem like he is looking for inspiration. It seems like he is looking for something. Luoqiu came to the place where the old captain was sitting. He reached out and touched the place where the old captain patted, and suddenly said, Let's wait and see first. Although we will know immediately after buying the information, there will be less of a sense of mystery. Yu Yi nodded. Bayou cruise ship had officially set sail. When it was time for the meal, Ren Xiling and Li Zi also came to the restaurant together. They found that Luoqiu and Yu Yi had already arrived first and took a seat. Aren't you hungry? Since you are here first, just order something to eat. It is a buffet anyway. Ren Xiling looked at the two guys sitting at an empty table and could not help but be surprised. I am not hungry. Let's wait for Uncle Ma to come. Luoqiu said indifferently. Old Ma? I think he's going to be tortured to death. Your aunt is dragging him everywhere. Let's not talk about it. I'm so thirsty. I'll go get some drinks. Ren Xiling said and walked quickly to the drinks area. Li Zi sat down and looked at Ren Xiling's back. Sister Ren. Chance. After Ren Xiling came to the drinks area, she quietly turned her head and saw that Luoqiu and Yu Yi were watching the performance of the foreign singer invited by the restaurant at this time. She suddenly showed a sinister smile. She took out a small box from the bag and kissed the box gently. Medicine, whether I can have a grandson or not depends on you. You have to be intelligent. Bodhisattva bless, Bodhisattva bless. She was like an auntie who was devoutly worshipping Guanyin in front of the temple. Auntie Ren took out a small ball from the box at this time, then she crushed it and poured it into a glass of watermelon juice. She then shook it like she was performing a ritual. Well, as Li Zi said, there is no strange taste. After a while, Ren Xiling came back with 4 drinks on a tray. Like a waiter, she gave Li Zi a cup. Li Zi, this cup of papaya fresh milk is for you. Li Zi silently looked down at her chest, and took it silently. What could she do? She was also desperate. Yu Yi, come. This is the strawberry milkshake I specially made for you. Thank you. The servant girl took it with both hands. Boy, don't say that I'm not good to you. Freshly squeezed watermelon juice. Thank me. Ren Xiling picked up the cup and gave it to Luoqiu. Unexpectedly, before the cup was put down, a hand directly took it from Ren Xiling's hand directly. After a day of shopping, I'm thirsty. Watermelon juice, I like it. The person who came was Officer Ma Haud. He saw that he drank up the watermelon juice without saying anything. At last, he licked his lips and said, Xiling, do you have any more? It tastes good. Why do you look a bit strange? Ren Xiling said to Sir Ma in a low voice with gnashing teeth. Ma Haud? And you? Force. No. 2. Stand. What? Chapter 564. She put barbecued meat with 3 times more chili sauce, Arctic shellfish sushi with more wasabi than rice, fried noodles with the same color as charcoal. Plates of delicacies were neatly placed in front of Sir Ma by sub-editor Rin in the name of filial piety. This made Sir Ma feel uncomfortable. He quietly pulled his wife and whispered in her ear, "Wife, how did I offend this lady today?" "I don't know. Why don't you eat some? I brought Bauji pills. It should be fine." Ma Howd swallowed his saliva. "Will I die? Will I die? Will I really die?" So, Officer Ma suddenly shuddered and drank a mouthful of clear water. He locked the door of life on Luochio and laughed. "By the way, Luochio, you have also been shopping for the whole afternoon. How do you feel about Bayou cruise ship? It's a bit old, but it's not bad, right?" "Not bad." Luochio stopped eating the sashimi that Yu Yi brought back. "I also encountered some interesting things." Ma Howd looked at Ren Xiling putting a plate of oysters in front of him again. He felt incredible that these oysters were actually normal, but he didn't feel happy too early. Instead, he sniffed carefully. "Well, there's no unusual smell. It looks very fresh, and it's edible." Sir Ma couldn't wait to drip lemon juice on it. He immediately swallowed a mouthful and was very satisfied. He praised, "This oyster is good. I'll eat this." Eat more. It's nourishing." Ren Xiling smiled and sat down elegantly. Lizzie moved her lips as if she wanted to remind Ren Bachian of something. However, when she saw that Sister Ren was not as reserved as she used to be, she immediately dismissed the idea. She could only swallow the words that she wanted to say back into her stomach. "Sister Ren, if he eats so many oysters, can this Officer Ma bear it? By the way, there has always been a legend about this Bayou cruise." Ma Howd looked at everyone while chewing an oyster. Luochio's interest was piqued. "Is there any legend?" Ren Xiling also strained her ears to listen to the conversation. Sir Ma saw that he had attracted everyone's attention, so he cleared his throat. Like a storyteller, he widened his eyes mysteriously and lowered his voice. "Let me tell you, there is a treasure hidden on this Bayou cruise ship." "Treasure?" Lizzie blinked her eyes and cried out in surprise. Sir Ma quickly made a silent gesture, then nodded heavily and said, "At that time, our country's technology was not up to par. This Bayou cruise ship was imported from abroad. I heard that when this Bayou cruise ship was built, someone secretly hid a treasure in it. And then..." Ren Xiling suddenly became uninterested. Ma Howd shrugged and said, "Then for so many years, people have been tirelessly boarding the ship to see if they can find this treasure. It's just that for so many years, I haven't heard that the treasure has been found." Lizzie shook her head and said with disappointment, "For so many years, it has to be repaired every year. Even a cockroach can't hide it. If there was a treasure, would it still be here? Besides, when this ship was delivered, would the shipyard still send it over knowing that there was a treasure? It's probably a gimmick or something like that." Ren Xiling shrugged and said, "At that time, how many people could afford such a thing as a star-class cruise ship? How could it attract people to board the ship without a gimmick?" "Ha ha ha, I'm just telling this story." Ma Howd was no longer mysterious. "That's right. This is probably really just a gimmick because the original production company has clarified that the cruise ship was checked again and again when it was delivered, so it is impossible for such a thing to happen. This legend was actually spread shortly after the Bayou cruise ship was officially used. In the beginning, because of this rumor, the Bayou cruise ship was popular for a while. Not only that, but the staff on the ship was also not easy to recruit, but because of this matter, many people were very enthusiastic about the interview. Later, over time, everyone knew what was going on, and later, it was not mentioned." Ren Xiling squinted and said, "I say, old Ma, are you also very eager to find the treasure? I heard that before you took the police exam, you were an unemployed person." "Bah! With my IQ, would I be the kind of person who wants to interview for a repairman because of a story that is a lie at first glance? Ma Howd said disdainfully. Then, everyone felt Sir Ma's IQ. However, if there is really a treasure, it seems that it is not bad. Lizzie blinked at this moment and said, "Think about it. On the vast and boundless sea, those treasure hunters who came to find the treasure launched a fierce battle on the cruise ship. All kinds of tricks emerged one after another. Isn't it very exciting and romantic? What era is it that there are still treasure hunters?" Rensselaer couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think this is a novel? Or ancient times? Silly girl." "That's true." Lizzie smiled and said nothing more. She began to eat the delicacies in front of her with relish. Rensselaer suddenly stood up and said, "Luocchio, I'm going to get something. Have you finished your water? I'll get you something to drink. What do you want to drink?" "I'm not thirsty." Boss Luo shook his head. "You drink your own." Rensselaer shrugged and turned around, but she clenched her fist and almost went crazy. "Old Ma! Do you want another plate of oysters?" "Oh, okay. I seem to still be able to eat. If I don't eat you to death, I will write my name upside down. Bayou cruise ship, at the bottom of the cabin, in the cabin where unauthorized personnel were not allowed to enter." A figure sneaked in carefully all the way, writing something with a small notebook in his hand. But at this time, he heard the sound of footsteps, so he quickly climbed up the pipe, lay flat and held his breath. Below, 2 crew members were walking through the network of channels. "Do you have any arrangements after returning the day after tomorrow?" a crew member asked. "Well, I have an appointment with my girlfriend. We are going to the flourishing Lotus Gymnasium to watch Singer! Another crew member laughed. "Well, this program has been very popular recently. There is a band called something, right?" Again. "Let me tell you, my girlfriend is their crazy fan, although I feel that it is okay. Women are emotional creatures." The voices of the 2 crew members talking had gradually faded away. He, who was hiding on the pipe, turned over at this time. This was the middle-aged man who claimed to be an engineer of the Bayou Cruise Ship Production Company, Qian Guoyang. Qian Guoyang frowned and looked around, then stared at one of the pages in his small notebook. He frowned and muttered to himself, "The data here doesn't match. Where the hell is this place?" But at this moment Qian Guoyang frowned. He saw a figure flashing from the side. The figure seemed to have noticed Qian Guoyang's gaze and ran away all of a sudden. Qian Guoyang narrowed his eyes and chased after him in an instant. The 2 chased in the engine room for a while, but they skillfully avoided the surveillance cameras in the engine room. "You can't get away!" Qian Guoyang suddenly shouted in a deep voice. He saw a locked iron door in front of him, and there was no effective escape route around. The person who was being chased turned around. It was a relatively thin man, but he was wearing a mask, so he couldn't see what he looked like. "Don't be nervous, don't be nervous." The man with the mask raised his hands and said in a relaxed tone, "I don't mean any harm. I just want to look around. I didn't expect to get lost." Qian Guoyang said indifferently, "Is that so? I don't think you look like a tourist." "This uncle." The man with the mask chuckled. "You don't look like a crew member, right? I don't know what you want to do in this place." Qian Guoyang sneered. "Since there is nothing, then let's go our separate ways." The man with the mask shrugged, and, "Then I will go back and finish my meal. Goodbye." The man with the mask walked past Qian Guoyang, then suddenly raised his arm and blocked Qian Guoyang's fist. "I knew you would do this." Qian Guoyang missed his attack, so he immediately turned around and kicked. The man with the mask reacted very quickly. He reached out and pressed Qian Guoyang's knee directly. The 2 began to fight hand-to-hand in this narrow place, but it was not like a street gangster fighting, but like 2 boxers fighting indiscriminately in the ring. "Who is there over there?" Chapter 565. Who's there? Suddenly, a shout interrupted the fight between the 2 men. Qian Guoyang and the masked man were in a stalemate at this time. The two men looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Uncle, it's not good for us to continue like this. Why don't we calm down and talk about something? The masked man suddenly said in a relaxed tone. Are you scared? Qian Guoyang sneered. Unfortunately, I never talk to guys of unknown origin. The masked man chuckled. Uncle, let's not beat around the bush. You're definitely not an ordinary person. You probably came here for something, right? Then who are you? Qian Guoyang pushed the man to the railing. It seemed that he wanted to push the man under the railing, but the masked man blocked him with his foot. The two were still in a stalemate. Uncle, you're not denying that you sneaked into the engine room for some personal purpose? The masked man smiled at this time. As for me, of course, I'm a tourist, but I have a small side business. Qian Guoyang sneered. Side business? I'm afraid you're a gentleman on the beam. The masked man laughed. Uncle, a gentleman standing on the ground is not as free as us on the beam. Qian Guoyang said indifferently. Thief is good, catching a thief is better. The masked thief narrowed his eyes. Uncle, are you sure you can deal with me? If I shout here, you'll be in trouble, right? Since we're all here for money, let's not hurt each other before we see anything, right? If you want to fight, let's wait until we find something, then we'll have a good fight, okay? Why should I believe you? You don't seem to have a choice, right? The masked man smiled. If we continue, both of us can't get away. When the crew walked into the engine room with a flashlight, they didn't find anything. The crew shook their heads in confusion and continued to patrol other places. After the crew left, in the darkness, two figures fell down from the pipe above. The moment Qian Guoyang landed, he immediately launched an attack toward the masked man. Uncle, you're still using this trick? The masked man seemed to have been prepared and easily blocked Qian Guoyang's attack. Qian Guoyang withdrew his attack and said indifferently, Let's leave this place first. Qian Guoyang leaned against the railing at the stern deck and lit a cigarette. The masked man, who put his hands in his pockets, stood next to him. After looking at the sea for a while, he suddenly said, Uncle, you are also here for the treasure of Bayou Cruise, right? What treasure? Qian Guoyang said indifferently, I don't really understand what you're talking about. Then what are you looking for in the computer room? I'm an engineer. I'm just going to the computer room for reference and to find some inspiration. The masked man said, Engineer. Being an engineer is good. It's a high-paying job. All right then, you be an engineer, and I'll be a gentleman on the beam. We'll mind our own business. But, Uncle, I have to say this first. If I find something first, don't come after me. Anyway, like you said, you're just an engineer. Goodbye. The masked man turned and left in front of Qian Guoyang. Qian Guoyang threw the cigarette but on the deck and stamped it out. Then, he suddenly said, Wait, come back. The masked man turned around. Uncle, you have to know, a good horse doesn't go back to the old pasture. Qian Guoyang said indifferently, We can cooperate, but I have to know what you have on hand. What about you? Asked the masked man. Let's talk together. Qian Guoyang shook his head. I'll count to 3. The masked man nodded. When he counted to 3, Qian Guoyang unbuttoned his clothes and took out a strange pendant that was half the size of a palm from his neck. It looked like a ring-shaped protractor. The masked man pulled out a piece of paper folded into a square from his trousers. The masked man said, This is the original design of Bayou Cruise. My grandfather left it to me. This protractor, if I didn't guess wrong, should be the only tool that can interpret the blueprint in your hand. Qian Guoyang said indifferently. The masked man was surprised. What a coincidence! Could this be the meeting of fate? Sure enough, the legend on Bayou Cruise is true? Humph, you're not even sure about the treasure, yet you dare to come up here casually? The masked man shrugged and said, Anyway, my grandfather was still thinking about this matter before he died. I didn't believe it at first, so the blueprint was kept as a relic. But when I heard that this ship was about to be retired, I thought about coming up to take a look. Anyway, whether there is treasure or not, I at least have some gains. Are you talking about this? Qian Guoyang calmly escaped a watch and a few necklaces from the pocket of his suit. The masked man subconsciously touched his bag before he suddenly laughed. Then, he untied the mask on his face. A young man about 27 or 28 years old, he introduced himself. Uncle, let me get to know you again. My name is Feiying. Qian Guoyang. Uncle. Feiying walked back at this time and pondered, why do you have this protractor? I said that I am an engineer. Qian Guoyang said calmly, I found this protractor in the shipyard where Bayou cruise ship was manufactured some time ago. At the same time, there was a message saying that there was something hidden in Bayou cruise ship. I checked all the previous reports of Bayou cruise ship, but I didn't find anything. Seeing that it is about to be retired, if it is dismantled as a whole, I am afraid that even if there is something hidden, it can't be hidden. Feiying glanced at Qian Guoyang and smiled calmly. Since it is such a coincidence, and uncle, you and I both have key things, it seems that our cooperation is really destined. Shall we find a place to solve this 30-year-old secret? Very good. Qian Guoyang nodded, but put the pendant back into his clothes. The two of them walked into the cabin one after the other, retracting his gaze from the deck below. This was Boss Luo and the maid who came with him as an excuse to enjoy the sea breeze after dinner. Luoqiu smiled at this time and said, It is really as Li Zi said. The hunters for the treasure met at sea and launched a battle of mutual deception. I don't know what this treasure will be. Yu Yi smiled slowly. But Boss Luo's gaze was looking elsewhere. Before seeing Qian Guoyang and Feiying, he had been looking somewhere here. Lights, cameras, microphones, and several men and women. In addition, there was the old captain that Luoqiu had seen, and the man in his 30s who had quarreled with the old captain. From the conversations of these people, it turned out that the man in his 30s was the son of the old captain. And these people with the production tools were invited by a certain TV station program team. The purpose of their arrival this time was to do a program about the final voyage of Bayou cruise ship. In addition, this was also the last mission of the old captain. The cruise ship that was about to be retired, and the old captain who had been serving on the ship for 30 years was about to retire. They were probably going to do a touching program. The public always yearned for things with feelings, but the old captain didn't seem to like the camera very much. Even if he sat in front of the camera, he was expressionless. There was even a look of resistance. Instead, the son of the old captain sitting next to him, who was also the deputy captain of Bayou cruise ship, looked at the camera with a smile on his face. I was adopted by my father since I was a child. My father is a very busy person. His life is almost dedicated to this Bayou cruise ship. So, I can say that I grew up on this Bayou cruise ship. Bayou cruise ship can be said to be like my home. At this time, the old captain suddenly stood up, turned around, and left without saying a word. The film crew looked at this scene in surprise. The leader hurriedly ordered the camera to be turned off first. He walked in front of the deputy captain and frowned. This Deputy Captain Mu, this is the third time the old captain has done this. Every time, he leaves halfway through. If this continues, it will be difficult for us to continue filming the documentary. Director, it's okay. The man. Deputy Captain Mu quickly said, My father is old. Sometimes he will throw a little tantrum. How about this? Let's continue tomorrow. I will have a good chat with him tonight. As for you, I have arranged the best suite. Everyone, have a good rest tonight. I hope there will be a good result tomorrow. The director nodded, then led the people to pack up the tools and leave. Chapter 566. The old captain's name was Mu Enli. The deputy captain's name was Mu Qinghai. It was said that when Mu Qinghai was a baby, he was abandoned by someone near the dock. Later, he was met by Mu Enli. Mu Enli, who had been single and unmarried, resolutely adopted the child and named him Mu Qinghai. In addition to being a cruise ship, Bayou cruise ship would also take on some cargo work and long-distance voyages, so Mu Enli simply put Mu Qinghai on the ship to take care of him. Although the father and son had their own properties in the city, as Mu Qinghai said, Bayou cruise ship was his home. In fact, it was not wrong. He grew up on the ship until the age of school. Later, after graduation, he returned to work on Bayou cruise ship again. And because of his excellent work ability, he had been promoted to the position of deputy captain at the age of 30. Taking off the hat on his head, the old Captain Mu Enli put it next to him. Then, he took out a stainless steel wine jug from his pocket, unscrewed the lid, and slowly drank alone. This was the highest area that tourists on Bayou cruise ship could use to overlook. Further up was the place that could only be used by the crew. At this time, there was no one around. Mu Enli sat on the bench in front of the guardrail, drinking wine while looking at the pocket watch on his body. He seemed to be a little distracted. "Dad, you are really here." Mu Qinghai came from behind at this time. Mu Enli put away the pocket watch and took another sip without looking back. Mu Qinghai walked to the old captain's side at this time, reached out and grabbed his wine jug. He frowned and said, "The doctor said that you can't drink. Take it back." The old captain stretched out his hand, but Mu Qinghai shook his head. The old captain glared and seemed to be a little drunk. He said with slight anger, "I have been at sea for more than 30 years. I have drunk more wine than you have drunk water. Whether there is anything wrong, I know it myself. When did you become a stubborn old man?" Mu Qinghai sighed and sat down. The old captain snorted softly, turned his body, leaned against the back of the stool, and faced Mu Qinghai with his back. Mu Qinghai said kindly, "Dad, didn't we agree before to record the show properly?" The old captain said, "You were the one who agreed, I didn't. I already said this morning that I won't film this kind of thing. Don't mention what happened this morning. I get angry every time you mention it." Mu Qinghai said helplessly, "Dad, I went overboard with my words this morning. Please calm down." "That's a nice way to put it." Mu Enli muttered, "Don't think that I don't know that you proposed it. Isn't it just to gain merit so that you can be promoted?" Mu Qinghai frowned. "Dad, I'm your son. Don't you want to see me doing well?" Mu Enli was silent for a while and suddenly said, "Which father is unwilling to see his child do well? I want to see you start a family. I want to see you succeed in your career. I don't want to see you use such a method. Qinghai, you are too impatient. You're only 30 years old, but you're already a vice captain. You'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. You don't have to waste me now." "Dad, how can you say that?" Mu Qinghai disagreed. "You have served on the Bayou cruise ship for 30 years. You are conscientious. Everyone has seen it and respects you. Now that the Bayou cruise ship is retiring, and you are about to retire, isn't it good to shoot a documentary so that when you are old and can't walk in the future, you can still watch these memories? I can still walk. I have enough to eat and sleep well. Don't worry." "Dad, can't we have a good talk for once?" Mu Qinghai said in a deep voice, "Since I came to work here, think about it. Didn't we quarrel every time? I know that public and private matters should be separated. On the ship, you and I have a superior and subordinate relationship. This is understandable. But I never thought of relying on your relationship. After I boarded the ship, I started from the lowest level of waiter. Until now, I have relied on my own ability. You are indeed a very competent vice captain." Mu Enli shook his head and said indifferently, "But you are not qualified to be a captain. You always refuse to acknowledge me." Mu Qinghai squeezed his fists. "Since I was a child, you have always refused to acknowledge me. In your eyes, I will never pass, just because I am not your biological son? What did you say? Say it again." Mu Enli widened his eyes and glared at him. "I'm sorry, I spoke too harshly again." Mu Qinghai took a deep breath and stood up. "Captain, this shooting is the company's idea. The company asked me to be in charge. I hope you don't make it difficult for me. Since you are also an employee of the company, please abide by the company's orders and do your part well. Mu Qinghai, how dare you talk to me like this? The old captain stood up abruptly with a face full of anger. It's getting late. Captain, you should rest early. I will inform you before tomorrow's shooting. Mu Qinghai turned around and walked away from this place. In the end, he did not look back, but said softly, "Also, remember to take your medicine." Watching Mu Qinghai leave, the old captain gasped for breath. His face suddenly became extremely painful. He clutched his heart hard and finally fell to the ground. The old captain struggled to reach into his pocket, took out a medicine bottle, and quickly swallowed a few pills. But his face was still pale. These drugs that could originally relieve his symptoms did not seem to be very effective this time. The old captain felt that his heart was about to split open. He was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. He felt that it was getting more and more difficult to breathe. But at this time, the old captain generated a force out of thin air. His trembling hand once again grabbed the pills and wanted to swallow them into his mouth. "Mr. Captain, if you take these pills again, you will die immediately. You should know that medicine is 30% poisonous." Suddenly, there was a voice, a light voice. The old captain looked towards the voice with difficulty. His consciousness began to blur. His vision was also blurred. He could only vaguely see two figures, like a man and a woman. I can't fall here. Captain, you should have the habit of taking medicine indiscriminately, right? And you haven't quit drinking. Your heart has reached its limit. You will die if you take this medicine. If you don't take it, you probably won't survive these 2 days. You will probably leave in a coma. It was said that the older one was, the more he knew his destiny. Especially for people who were about to die, their perception was far more accurate than any of the most advanced medical equipment. The old captain slowly stretched out his hand and grabbed the night sky. It seemed that something in the night sky was reaching out to him. He wriggled his lips and begged, at least let me complete this voyage, at least let me accompany it on this last journey. Let me, at least give me a few more days." Mu Enli's hand dropped suddenly, and he closed his eyes. "I understand, customer. Captain, wake up, Captain." His body was shaken, and the old captain slowly opened his eyes. His vision gradually became clear, and he saw a young crew member. "Captain, you are awake. Thank God. Captain, I am the medical team. I will come over right away." The crew member breathed a sigh of relief at this time. The old captain sat up with the help of the crew member and subconsciously reached out to touch his heart. For many years, he had never felt that it was beating so vigorously, and his breathing was incredibly smooth. "Captain?" I informed the vice-captain. "He said to come over right away." "I'm fine." Mu Enli shook his head, stood up with his hands on his knees, picked up the captain's hat on the stool, and put it on. "Don't make a fuss." "Captain, but you just..." The crew member still wanted to say something. Mu Enli said, "Do I look like someone who is in trouble?" The crew member was taken aback, but found that the old captain's complexion seemed to be very good. His energetic appearance made him look a few years younger. "Why aren't you going back to your post?" the old captain suddenly shouted. The crew member was taken aback. He subconsciously saluted and stood upright. "Yes, I will go back now." "Wait." Mu Enli walked in front of the crew member, reached out and straightened his hat, and turned the collar area, and said in a deep voice, "Don't embarrass me." The crew member raised his head again and puffed out his chest. He did not dare to breathe. Captain Mu Enli was famous for being strict and old-fashioned. "Young man, do a good job." Chapter 567. At his usual pace, old Captain Mu Enli walked all the way without any abnormality on his face. The crew members he saw on the road also unconsciously became cautious when they saw the old captain as usual. It wasn't until Mu Enli returned to his room and closed the door that there was a trace of tiredness in his eyes. But his body did not feel tired. Instead, there was a feeling of vitality when he was young. It was incredible. Although this matter was extremely weird, Mu Enli had experienced decades of ups and downs, so he could still remain calm at this time. At this time, Mu Enli took a deep breath, walked quickly to the window, and pulled the curtains completely. He walked to the door again and confirmed that the door of the room was locked. Mu Enli walked to his window at this time, squatted down, gritted his teeth, and pushed the bed about 5 centimeters away. Mu Enli stopped, took out his pocket watch, and opened it to take a look. There was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. There was a knock on the door. Dad, are you in the room? Dad, are you okay? Mu Qinghai's voice. The old captain frowned, put away the pocket watch, and moved the bed back to its original place again. When Mu Qinghai couldn't get an answer for a long time, he slammed the door again, and the door opened at this time. Mu Enli frowned. Why are you making so much noise? I'm not dead yet. Mu Qinghai suddenly choked. After a while, he said, I heard that you fainted on the deck. Mu Enli said calmly, Who said that I fainted? I just fell asleep in the chair because I was sleepy and then I accidentally fell to the ground. Don't make a fuss. Dad, why don't you let the doctor take a look at you? Mu Qinghai insisted. It's not troublesome to ask the doctor to come over anyway. No need. I know my own business, Mu Enli said and was about to close the door. Dad, can you listen to me for once? Mu Qinghai reached out to hold the door and raised his voice a little. I want to rest. If I don't rest now, how can I deal with those troublesome guys with cameras tomorrow? Mu Enli snorted coldly. Mu Qinghai was taken aback for a moment. While he was in a daze, Mu Enli had already closed the door. Fortunately, Mu Qinghai's palm was not clamped. Mu Qinghai frowned. Listening to his father's tone, it seemed that he really agreed this time. He grew up with Mu Enli, so he knew Mu Enli's temperament very well. If he didn't really agree, he wouldn't say such words at all. Dad, thank you, Mu Qinghai said softly outside the door. After pausing for a while, his footsteps became slightly lighter and he left. In the room, the old captain did not move his bed this time. Instead, he pulled open the curtains and lay on the bed without changing his clothes. He held his pocket watch with both hands and slowly fell asleep. Qian Guoyang said that he needed to use the protractor and some other tools, but these tools were in his room. Fei Ying did not say anything and directly agreed to Qian Guoyang's request. While the tourists outside were having fun in the various entertainment facilities of the cruise ship, the two had already hidden in the room, painstakingly studying the design drawings at hand. Qian Guoyang spread out the drawings in Fei Ying's hand and put them on the bed. Then, he took out a pile of blueprints from his suitcase and quickly flipped through and compared them. Baiyu cruise ship has undergone a total of 3 major changes, but the important places have not changed. Here, and here. Looking at Qian Guoyang's serious face, Fei Ying looked at the layout of the room very leisurely. He even took out a bottle of beer from the refrigerator and leaned against the headboard to drink and watch. Qian Guoyang frowned and said, Can you do something too? Fei Ying shrugged and said, Uncle, I'm sorry. I'm illiterate. I didn't graduate from elementary school. I don't know anything about these things. Anyway, as long as you find the right position, we can combine our strength. Isn't it easy to take it away? Qian Guoyang sneered and said, You don't have to do anything. Just provide a design drawing and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. It's really the nature of a thief. Fei Ying burped and showed a smirk on his face. You're really a thief. Qian Guoyang made a dissatisfied mutter and then snorted coldly, Don't really want to do nothing. I'm thirsty too. Be smart. Okay. Fei Ying shrugged and stood up. He said with a big tongue, I'm serving you now. First, what do you want? Pour me a glass of water. Qian Guoyang snorted again. Fei Ying blinked and said, Okay, Fei Ying walked past Qian Guoyang and walked to the table where the kettle was placed. He didn't take 2 steps before Fei Ying suddenly squatted down. At the same time, Qian Guoyang's arm swept across Fei Ying's forehead dangerously. Fei Ying stepped back and kicked toward Qian Guoyang's abdomen. Qian Guoyang's reaction was also fast enough. As soon as he withdrew his abdomen, his whole body was like a bowing leopard. He instantly took 2 steps back. Uncle, you're still doing this? Aren't you bored? Fei Ying sneered and stood up. His whole body was on guard. I've been attacked by the old guy at home since I was a child. It's child's play. Ordinary thieves don't have your vigilance. Qian Guoyang said indifferently, It seems that you're not an ordinary thief. You flatter me. I'm just SOSO. Fei Ying pursed his mouth, but his eyes looked at the drawings and protractors placed on the bed. He suddenly reached out and grabbed the drawings and protractors. Qian Guoyang looked at Fei Ying like this, but he didn't move at all. It was as if he acquiesced to Fei Ying's action. Uncle, since you're not sincere, then let's do it alone. Fei Ying raised the lute in his hand and smiled evilly. Oh, no, I'm doing it alone. Fei Ying only spoke half of his words, then he shook his head heavily. His figure staggered a little, and his vision suddenly became a little blurred. You? What are you doing? Qian Guoyang walked to the front of Fei Ying and gave a hook to Fei Ying, whose body was soft and had no resistance. He sneered, Good training. But didn't your family tell you not to enter a stranger's room casually? Looking at the motionless and unconscious Fei Ying, Qian Guoyang directly tied him to the stool with dead knots. At the same time, he also took out all the small tools on Fei Ying's body one by one. Then, Qian Guoyang walked to the desk lamp and twisted out a small piece of paper from the light bulb inside. This was the real culprit that caused Fei Ying to pass out. It was a product made with a special technology. When heated, it could emit a colorless and odorless substance in the air. After doing all this, Qian Guoyang picked up the drawings and protractors, locked the door, and walked alone in the corridor of the cabin, gradually going deep. 1 night passed. 1 night passed. Luoqiu opened the door of the room. Everyone agreed on a time to gather for breakfast. But when the door was opened, Boss Luo saw sub-editor Ren almost sticking to him. Perhaps before the door was opened, this Auntie Ren was sticking to the door of the room. What are you doing? Luoqiu asked indifferently. Calling the bed. No, calling you to get up. Ren Xiling pushed Luoqiu away forcefully, walked into the room unceremoniously, and said with a smile, Yu Yi, did you sleep well last night? Pretty good, it was very quiet. Yu Yi smiled slightly. The servant girl had already dressed neatly and stood at the window position. She seemed to be looking at the sea just now. Ren Xiling glanced at the bed, then sat directly in front of the table, but her eyes sneakily glanced at the garbage bin under the table. F***CK. It's so clean, there's nothing? No, if there is no chromosome container, is it a medium X? So Auntie Ren suddenly asked with a smile. I say, did you two sleep very late last night? No. Yu Yi said softly, I was tired after coming back, so I lay down to rest. Auntie Ren didn't give up and approached Yu Yi, whispering in her ear, You really didn't do anything? Do you want to do anything? Yu Yi replied softly. Auntie Ren. Ren Xiling was crying in her heart, suddenly yelling, Ma howd? Ma howd? Get up! Breakfast! She yelled all the way from Luoqiu's room to Sir Ma's room, and vigorously knocked on the door of the room. Sir Ma's wife seemed to be particularly beautiful today. Xiling, good morning. Sister-in-law, good morning. Ren Xiling nodded. Where's old Ma? Mrs. Ma suddenly blushed and stammered. Old Ma, he hasn't woken up yet, but don't worry about him. Let's eat. I'll bring him something when I come back. Looking at Ren Xiling's suspicious look, Mrs. Ma was also very embarrassed. She couldn't say that last night. Ma Howd suddenly shouted, Wife, I can't seem to control myself. Chapter 568. Captain Mu Enli, in your 30-year voyage with Bayou cruise ship, what is the most memorable thing for you? The director asked. The old captain in front of the camera looked at the sea level at this time. Mu Enli's white beard was very hard, and the sea breeze could not move it. But his gray hair was very soft, and it was messed up when the wind blew. The old captain did not answer, as if he was lost in thought. But the director did not have any dissatisfaction this time. This kind of old man's yearning was really a good shot. He would not mind how long the old captain pondered. At most, some time would be cut off in the later stage. But the longer the old captain was silent, the better the emotions brewing would be. Don't miss a shot, the director whispered to the cameraman. During the day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, the sunlight was not hot. But many tourists had come to the deck to play and take photos. Not far away, Renziling put her hand on her eyes and said, "It seems that they are shooting a documentary or something over there, right? I remember this director. Sister Ren, do you know him? Do you want to go over and say hello?" Renziling shook her head. "I just did an interview. He is almost like a stranger. I'm not interested, and this old guy is actually a pervert." Sigh. "Let's not talk about this nonsense. Li Zi, I feel like I'm already a cripple now." Li Zi patted Auntie Ren's head comfortingly. She always felt that the real cripple was Sir Ma. Her gaze shifted and looked at a pitiful figure. She saw that Ma Howd had already woken up. He was now holding his back with one hand and holding the steel plate of the cabin with the other. He was trembling step by step in a manner similar to crawling. His legs were shaking as he moved forward. He could still wake up. Sure enough, it was the spirit of the police that supported him. Li Zi quietly stuck out her tongue. Everyone was in an open-air restaurant on the deck at this time. Yu Yi came to Luochio with a light red drink from the buffet area and whispered, "Master, I found a few good cocktails that can replenish physical strength. Let Officer Ma drink it." Boss Luo never doubted the quality of Miss Maid's products. After Ma Howd sat down with difficulty, Luochio handed it to him. "I heard that drinking alcohol in the morning can refresh your mind. Try this." "All right." Ma Howd still felt a little weak. Why was he so fierce last night? At this time, Renziling came over with another plate of oysters. Sir Ma's face suddenly changed. He pretended to vomit and begged, "I don't want to eat any more. I'm really not eating any more." "Io, this roar, old Ma. Look at how beautiful sister-in-law is today, tsk tsk." Mrs. Ma naturally blushed from being teased. It was also difficult for her. "But honey, why are you pinching me?" Sir Ma looked at his wife pitifully. Renziling found it amusing and giggled. This day seemed to have started with laughter, probably. A horrified and ear-piercing scream suddenly rang out. Following that, more and more cries of terror rang out. "Get out of the way! Get out of the way! What happened? I'm Ma Howd from the city's police station. Get out of the way!" Sir Ma squeezed through the crowd and saw that the surrounding tourists had already surrounded the city. In front of him, there was a woman paralyzed on the deck in horror, pointing her trembling finger in front of her. In front of the woman, there was a man in a casual suit lying on the ground. "I'm a police officer, what happened?" Sir Ma quickly walked to the woman's side and squatted down, taking out his ID. The woman quickly said, Police officer. I don't know. I just said that I wanted to go back to my room to get something, but when I came to the stairs, I saw this man coming out. There was a fruit knife in his chest, and his whole body was covered in blood. Then, he just climbed up and fell." Ma Howd nodded. At the same time, he frowned and walked to the fallen man's side. He reached out and pushed the man, then checked his breath and pulse. His face sank all of a sudden. "Old Ma, how is this guy?" Ma Howd raised his head with a solemn expression. "He's dead." At this time, the crew on the ship also arrived. On the other side of the crowd, Mu Enli and his group, who were shooting a documentary, also arrived at the same time. The tourists were temporarily alienated from this area, but there were still many people who secretly took photos with their mobile phones in the distance. Ma Howd was squatting next to the deceased at this moment. At the same time, there was a man in his 40s wearing a doctor's uniform next to him. This was the doctor on the Bayou cruise ship. The doctor shook his head at this moment and said, "He's really dead. This knife, I'm afraid, pierced directly into the chest diaphragm. I suspect that it also pierced through the left atrium. However, this guy seems to have done some first aid measures on himself. He should have pressed the wound to prevent excessive blood loss. His sense of survival is quite good, but unfortunately, it didn't last long." After that, the doctor looked at Ma Howd and said, "Officer Ma, I can only judge this. I'm afraid that a more professional examination will require official forensic personnel." Ma Howd nodded. He didn't believe that this doctor only knew so much. However, he thought that this guy probably didn't want to get into trouble. He could only come here because of his temporary request. Sir Ma took a pair of rubber gloves from the doctor's hand, and then began to search the man's body. However, Ma Howd did not find anything useful, such as a wallet, ID card, mobile phone, and the like. There were no accessories on the body, but he found a business card from the man's body. Ma Howd glanced at it and muttered, "Chien Guoyang? Engineer?" Sir Ma pondered for a while before standing up. "Excuse me, who is the person in charge of this Bayou cruise ship?" "I am the captain of Bayou cruise ship." Mu Enli walked in front of Ma Howd and glanced at the deceased Chien Guoyang on the ground. His expression was dignified. "Officer Ma, right? May I ask how I can help you?" "Captain," Ma Howd said sternly, "I need you to help check the identity of this person. The name of the deceased is Chien Guoyang. You should be able to find out his identity information from the boarding information, right? In addition, can I check the surveillance video inside the ship?" The old captain glanced at Chien Guoyang on the ground again. He didn't say anything and nodded gently. "Officer Ma, come with me to the central control room. In addition, please temporarily block this place." Ma Howd continued, "Let the guards patrol the area and protect any place where there are bloodstains. Be careful to wear gloves and try not to destroy the scene. Now the return time is too slow. I have called for support, so please ask the captain to prepare the tarmac and wait for the helicopter to land." "Qinghai!" The old captain turned back and shouted at this time. Mu Qinghai hurriedly walked up. "I got it. I will arrange it immediately." Mu Qinghai's face was quite heavy. At this time, he couldn't care about shooting the documentary. There was a murder on the cruise ship. The impact of this incident on the company was not ordinary. If it was not handled well, they would be held accountable by the outside world. Mu Qinghai quickly took a crew member and left the scene. He carefully walked down the stairs that the deceased Chien Guoyang climbed up. Mu Enli said at this time, "Officer, please come with me." Ma Howd nodded and said nothing. He quickly followed Mu Enli's footstep. However, after taking a few steps, Ma Howd turned around and frowned. "What are you doing?" "Going to the central control room," Ren Xiling said matter-of-factly. "Why are you going to the central control room?" Sir Ma continued to frown. Ren Xiling blinked and said, "To watch the surveillance video." "Get lost. I'm investigating a case. Do you think I'm going to play?" Ma Howd quickly waved his hand as if he was driving a stray dog and said, "I don't know what kind of person the murderer is. It's very dangerous here. You all quickly go back to the room and hide." "Okay." Ren Xiling nodded. Sir Ma, who was about to say something, was stunned at this moment. What the hell, it was the first time he saw this lady being so obedient. "You really won't do anything secretly?" Ma Howd asked suspiciously. Ren Xiling shrugged and said, "This ship is so big. What can I do? You go quickly. Let's take sister-in-law back to the room. Old Ma, do your best." "Thank you so much." Ma Howd nodded subconsciously. This lady has been cultivating her mind and temperament recently. She is sensible. Do your best. Renziling waved her hand at Ma Haud's back and encouraged him loudly. After Sir Ma had walked into the ship, Sub-Editor Rin sneered disdainfully. Damn! Lizzie, let's… Hey, where are my Luochio and Yu Yi? Lizzie blinked and said, Luochio and Yu Yi went back with your sister-in-law when you were talking to Sir Ma. Chapter 569. In the surveillance video, it was just that the man named Qian Guoliang suddenly appeared in front of the camera. At this time, he had been fatally injured. He could only hold the wall while walking towards the stairs on the upper deck. Strange, is this the only one? Sir Ma frowned here. Mu Enli ordered calmly, look for it again. The employee in charge of the monitoring station quickly turned on all the screens and replayed all the time period. Finally, the employee said helplessly, Captain, I can't find it. There is only this one. Ma Haud walked back and forth here. It can't be just this one. If you can't find it, there are only two possibilities. Officer Ma, what are the two possibilities? Asked Mu Enli. Sir Ma stopped and said, one is that someone has quietly altered these videos, but this should be impossible. We came here immediately after the accident. The murderer should not be faster than us. Apart from us, has anyone else come here? The old captain suddenly asked the people in the monitoring room at this time. Everyone shook their heads. Ma Haud said, then there is only one possibility left. The deceased, Qian Guoliang, has the ability to hide from those surveillance cameras. This is impossible, right? These surveillance cameras were only installed 2 years ago. There are almost no blind spots. The employee said subconsciously. Sir Ma nodded and said, yes, the coverage of these cameras is wide enough. It is not easy to hide from them, especially when this guy is about to die. He is not in the mood to hide from these cameras. Instead, he should have let himself be discovered. Look at him walking towards the deck. It's obvious that he wants to survive. That's strange. Could it be that this guy is a ghost? The employee said subconsciously. Believe in science. Ma Haud said heavily, prosperity, democracy. I will give you the 16 words of mantra. Even so, how did the deceased suddenly appear in the corridor? Officer Ma couldn't help but watch this video over and over again. Captain, I found the login information of this Qian Guoliang and the room he stayed in. A crew member hurried in at this time. Give me the information. Ma Haud reached out and took it. Then, he said without hesitation, now, show me this person's room. After everyone left the central control room, Ma Haud made a call on the way. Lin Feng? Is the helicopter not ready yet? Check something for me first. Remember, the deceased, Qian Guoliang, was an engineer. His ID number was… Got it, Sir Ma. I'll check it right away. As they walked down the stairs leading to the deck, they could see the clear and shocking bloody handprints on the wall. Renziling looked all the way without fear, thinking about something as she walked. Lizzie followed behind her, eating a lollipop. By the way, Lizzie, you can still eat snacks. Aren't you afraid? Renziling turned around curiously. Because Sister Rin is here, there's nothing to be afraid of. Lizzie blinked and said, and eating sweets can stabilize one's mood. Oh, I don't wear flattery. Renziling shrugged. But, why did this guy want to go to the deck? Maybe he wanted to find someone to help him? Lizzie thought. Renziling shook her head. If it were you, if you were seriously injured, would you climb the stairs painstakingly? Wouldn't it be faster to call for help? Didn't Officer Ma just check that there was nothing on the deceased's body? Renziling nodded. That's the problem. You said that the murderer wanted to kill him, so it's reasonable to take away his belongings. The problem is, why didn't the murderer wait until he was completely dead? Escaped or something like that? You even took away his belongings and stabbed him in the chest. How could you let him escape? How many people did he have? Lizzie stuck out her tongue. At this time, a crew member suddenly appeared and shouted, what are you doing here? This place is blocked, please leave. This is not a sightseeing place. Subeditor Rin glared at him, turned around and said with arms akimbo, don't you know who I am? The crew member shook his head honestly. Who the hell knows who you are? Although you are in good health, Subeditor Rin suddenly switched to her shrewish mode, pointing at the crew member and saying, Idiot! Didn't you see that I was with Officer Ma just now? Now Sir Ma went to the central control room to investigate. Of course, we have to stay here to investigate the scene. Do you want to interfere with our work? The crew member was shocked and quickly stood up. Sorry. My eyesight is not good. Please. Just tell me if you have any orders. So Subeditor Ren looked at the crew member and said, You go and tell your colleagues to guard nearby and don't let irrelevant people enter. I know. I'll go now. Seeing the crew member walking away, Ren Xiling turned around and made a victory gesture to Li Zi. As long as you are happy. Li Zi was still eating her lollipop silently. It's strange, the handprint disappeared here? Ren Xiling and Li Zi came to the corner of the corridor, looking at the handprint that appeared out of thin air. There were some bloodstains on the ground, but other than that they found nothing else. Li Zi knocked on the surrounding walls and tried to push the surrounding rooms. She shook her head. The walls are solid. As for the door lock, there is no bloodstain on the door handle, is it? Li Zi subconsciously looked up. Ren Xiling also looked at the corridor ceiling above the bloodstain at the same time, saying directly, Li Zi, squat down. Why? How can I climb up if I don't step on you? Sister Ren, how heavy are you? I told you to squat. Ren Xiling patted Li Zi's head hard. This is the room. The crew member led everyone to the door of the deceased Qian Guoliang's room. Ma Hao said directly, Do you have a backup key? Open the door. The crew member nodded quickly and took out the backup key to open the door. When he really wanted to push the door open, he was stopped by Ma Hao. You stand on both sides. Officer Ma also stuck to the side of the door. First, he gently pushed the door open a little. After a while, he opened the door vigorously. Someone is here. They saw a man of 27 or 28 years old, who was tied to a chair in the room. His head was lowered and he seemed to be in a coma. Ma Hao glanced at the room and ordered, Wake this guy up and find out if there is anything special in the room, such as clues. So one of the crew members volunteered to approach the tied-up man and shake him. Wake up. Sir, wake up. Wake up. Officer Ma, it seems that I can't wake him up? Ma Hao rolled his eyes. It would be strange if someone like you could wake him up. Let me do it. Sir Ma filled a cup with water and walked to the front of the man. Everyone looked at the police officer. Ma Hao suddenly said, All of you, turn around and don't look at anything. Everyone looked at the old captain subconsciously, only to see the old captain shake his head and turn around automatically. Everyone could only follow. Sir Ma held a mouthful of cold water at this time, then he stretched out his fist and knocked on the man's head. Then he forcefully shot out the water in his mouth. He shot the man's face. The unconscious man's eyelids twitched a few times, and he slowly opened his eyes. Fei Ying opened his eyes, first showing a puzzled look, then he suddenly frowned. Who are these people, and why do I feel like my stomach has been trampled by a hippopotamus? And why is my face wet, so uncomfortable? Who are you people? Fei Ying looked at the people in front of him with a look of horror. What do you want to do to me? Why did you tie me up? Ma Hao had seen this kind of face many times. When he was about to ask, the phone rang. It was a call from Lin Feng. Sir Ma, I found the person you asked me to find, Qian Guoliang. His identity, occupation, and company all match. But this Qian Guoliang is now in Australia. I just contacted him. He is not dead at all? Chapter 570. Mrs. Ma's face was a little pale, but after drinking the gentle milk that Yu Yi poured for her, she seemed to look better. As an older person, she was naturally frightened when she saw such an impactful scene on the deck. Do you feel better? Luocio asked softly. I'm a little scared. Mrs. Ma rubbed her forehead and shook her head. I didn't expect it to be so scary. I don't know who did it. It's so cruel. With that said, Mrs. Ma took off the prayer beads in her hand. She clasped the beads with her fingers and began to recite a few lines of Heart Sutra. Luocio knew that Mrs. Ma began to believe in Buddhism early on, but she was not a real believer. It was a way to cultivate her mind. But the effect seemed to be much more effective than a glass of milk. Mrs. Ma smiled at this time and said, Luocio, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Won't it be boring to accompany me here? With that said, Mrs. Ma glanced at Yu Yi behind Boss Luo. It meant that Boss Luo should accompany her. Luocio shook his head and said, It doesn't matter. Anyway, the atmosphere on the ship probably isn't very good now. Murder scene. Most of the tourists on the cruise ship probably have some resistance in their hearts, right? On the way back, they calmed down a lot. Many people chose to return to their rooms and hide. There were even a small number of people who had already gone to the cruise ship's staff to make a fuss. Mrs. Ma suddenly looked at Yu Yi and said, Yu Yi, right? Mrs. Ma, is there anything I can help you with? The servant girl responded with a smile. Mrs. Ma was taken aback, then apologized. I want to have a few words with Luocio. Can you wait for a while? The servant girl nodded and said softly, Then I'll go back and tidy up the room first. Call me if you need anything. With that said, Yu Yi opened the door of the room. Before leaving, she bowed to the two again before gently closing the door. The action was so soft that only a slight click of the door lock could be heard. She actually called me madam. I really can't think of an ordinary girl with such upbringing. Madame Ma sighed at this time and said, She's like a real young lady. I always feel a little pressured. Luocio had also considered this problem before, but this seemed to be the simplest thing Yu Yi could do. She lives a more meticulous life. Mrs. Ma smiled slowly and suddenly patted the back of Luocio's hand. She blinked and said, Luocio, tell me honestly, this girl is actually not your girlfriend. Boss Luo opened his mouth slightly. Madame Ma said softly, Auntie's face has some wrinkles in recent years, but she was young once. People who love each other don't look at each other like that. Old Ma was an uncouth man and could not see anything. Xiling, this girl, is taking things for granted. Her imagination is too rich. But she's also worried about you, so she's a little bewildered. Luocio smiled slightly. Age gave this auntie enough wisdom. Madame Ma in front of him had a jade-like luster, pure and soft. Madame Ma touched Boss Luo's face at this time and said kindly, You child, you haven't shown yourself much since you were a child, but Auntie has watched you grow up since you were a child. There are some things that you can't fool Auntie. Did something happen to you recently? No. Luocio said slowly, I'm still me for the time being. For the time being? Madame Ma was taken aback, but she shook her head and did not ask further. Okay, if you say no, then no. Auntie believes that if it's you, there must be no problem. After all, you are Lao Luo's child. However, if you have something to talk to someone about, you can come to Auntie. Your Uncle Ma's brothers, except for Yi Yen, all have families and careers. And you are the first to be born. Old Ma didn't say it, but I know that he has long regarded you as his own son in his heart, and so does Auntie. So, no matter what happens, you must remember that you still have us behind you. Luocio subconsciously grabbed Madame Ma's hand, felt the warmth of Madame Ma's palm on his face, closed his eyes, and whispered after a while, I will. Good child. Madame Ma patted Luocio's forehead dotingly, then blinked and said, But Yu Yi, this girl is really good. Although I don't know what your relationship is, are you really not going to consider it? Luocio let go of Madame Ma's hand and said softly, Auntie, can you not tell others for the time being? Madame Ma nodded. The child she had watched grow up was not even 21 years old. She believed that his future was still very exciting. She also knew that young people needed to experience more before they could truly mature, so she agreed. Luocio stood up and said softly, Auntie, you will live a long life. You child, sometimes you have a sweet mouth. Madame Ma chuckled, thinking that this was Luocchio's coaxing words. Okay, Auntie wants to read the Heart Sutra for a while. You can go out. Don't let a girl, wait for you for so long. After all, no matter how well cultivated a girl is, there will be times when she is unhappy. It's time for dinner. I'll bring you something to eat. Luocchio nodded, opened the door and left. Officer, I have said many times. I really don't know anything. I was walking in the corridor when I was suddenly knocked out. When I woke up, I saw you. Fei Ying looked at the expressionless Ma Haud and said helplessly, I really don't know who Qian Guoyang is, let alone how he died. You also saw that I was tied up in the room. What can I do? I also want to know why this dead guy caught me. Officer, I have eaten more salt than you have eaten sugar. You said that this matter has nothing to do with you. Who are you lying to? Ma Haud sneered. You'd better tell the truth. If you don't, I can let you stay in the detention center for as long as you like. Fei Ying frowned and said, Officer, are you threatening me? No matter what, I'm still a victim. I can report you for abusing your power at any time. Whatever. Anyway, there are so many reports on my desk that I can use them to boil soup. You're not the only one. Sir Ma said indifferently, and you appeared in the deceased's room in full view of everyone. If you don't tell the truth, the court will decide what to do. Just as he said this, a crew member hurried over and said quickly, Officer Ma, we found a lot of jewelry in this man's room. Some of them seem to be stolen by tourists on the cruise ship. Fei Ying's face suddenly changed slightly. Sir Ma sneered directly, It seems that you don't need to be a suspect. You can go to the prison for a visit just because of theft. Fei Ying shook his body quickly. He was still tied to the stool. The police officer had no intention of letting him go at all. The chair kept hitting, and Fei Ying shouted at this time, I'm innocent. Someone must have framed me. Officer, you have to believe me. I'm really innocent. Another crew member came in at this time and said quickly, Officer Ma, we found the video. Last night, at about 8:15, this man and Qian Guoyang entered the room together. About 10 minutes later, Qian Guoyang went out, and then he never came out. Sir Ma sneered directly and grabbed Fei Ying's collar. How about it? You still say that you have nothing to do with this Qian Guoyang? You'd better tell the truth, or I'll directly identify you as a murder suspect. Fei Ying opened his mouth and frowned. That guy. Is he really dead? Ma Haud sneered. It seems that you won't give up until all hope is gone. You carry this guy, I'll let him see the body. Li Zi, do you use your strength? I can't go up. In the corridor, Ren Xiling, who had climbed half of her body to the ceiling, was struggling to continue to climb up, but it seemed to be a little difficult. Li Zi looked at the place where Ren Xiling was stuck inside. Sister Ren, do you think about losing weight? F***CK? Don't talk nonsense. Push me hard, harder. Harder soon. Soon. Because the upper body had already sunk into the ceiling, the sound that came down seemed to be a little bit, and so on. So Li Zi took a breath quietly. Then I'm coming. Come on. Harder, harder. I can stand it. Ah. Ha. Ah. It hurts. Finally, under the heart of Li Zi, Sub-Editor Ren ascended to the sky as she wished. Oh no, she successfully climbed up to the ceiling. Li Zi clapped her hands at this time. When she was about to eat something to celebrate, she suddenly looked at the end of the corridor and saw that there was a figure looking at this side. A woman, wearing sunglasses and a headscarf, holding a satchel, looked like a tourist. But when she met Li Zi's eyes, the woman immediately left. Well? Li Zi blinked doubtfully. What are you looking at? Come up quickly. Ren Xiling poked her head out at this time and stretched out her hand. Hurry up, I'll pull you up. It's quite spacious up here. Chapter 571. Qian Guoyang's body was still placed in the original place for the time being, but it had been temporarily covered with a white tablecloth. Yu Yi squatted down and lifted the white cloth slightly. Miss Maid naturally couldn't let her master do this kind of work. Miss Maid's blue eyes were shining. The Empress who made her not only made these eyes look particularly beautiful, but also gave these gem-like pupils some special abilities. For example, X-ray vision. The 2 crew members who were guarding here stood straight at this time, looking straight ahead as if they were turning a blind eye to all this. After a while, Yu Yi covered the white cloth again and stood up. She looked at Luoqiu and said, "Master, Qian Guoyang's fatal wound is indeed the knife in his chest, but there are no fingerprints. I think the murderer is more careful." Luoqiu had already ignored the physique of something happening wherever he went. Since he had encountered it, he might as well use it as a way to pass the time. Anyway, for the boss, paying attention to this murder case was much more interesting than having a vacation on this Bayou cruise ship. Since it was a way to pass the time, the boss did not intend to buy information directly for the time being. It was purely a small game to play with Yu Yi. Other than that? Luoqiu nodded and asked. Anyway, when Sir Ma's support arrived, the accompanying forensic evidence would be able to find specific things after being examined. So, in Luoqiu's view, Yu Yi, who had the same ability but was faster, was not considered breaking the rules. It was just a matter of time. Also, he was poisoned. Yu Yi said directly, judging from the toxins in his body, it should be aminoperhydroquinazoline type compound, which is commonly known as tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin? Luoqiu was stunned. Yes. Yu Yi nodded and said, I remember that there is a Japanese restaurant in the entertainment area. There is tetrodotoxin on the menu. If it was not brought up in advance, it is possible to get it from this restaurant and then process it alone. If it is tetrodotoxin, it is enough to be fatal. Luoqiu shook his head and said, It's enough to kill. There's no need to stab him with a knife and, Luoqiu looked at the bloodstains that extended all the way up the stairs and said indifferently, We're already at sea. It's better to throw the corpse in the sea. With that, Luoqiu walked down the stairs. Yu Yi naturally followed. Before she left, she waved her hand at the 2 crew members who were standing guard. The 2 crew members suddenly trembled as if they had come back to life. The boss followed the palm print all the way to the wall and finally came to the place where the palm prints stop. Then, he looked around carefully before finally raising his head and looking at the ceiling. Yu Yi said softly, It should be Miss Ren and Miss Lizzie. Luoqiu smiled and said, This is her interest. Let her be. Anyway, there was nothing up there except for rats and cockroaches. Even if we encounter them, with Lizzie around, there should be no problem. With that said, Luoqiu walked back and said as he walked, Qian Guoyang came for the treasure of the Bayou cruise ship. Fei Ying also came for the treasure, but Fei Ying was locked in Qian Guoyang's room all night, tied up and unconscious. Yu Yi, what do you think? Both of them have the key to finding the treasure in their hands. Miss Maid thought for a while and said, Since Fei Ying was knocked unconscious, he must have been tricked by Qian Guoyang. Officer Ma and the others did not find the design drawings and protractors in the room, so Qian Guoyang must have taken them away when he went out. There are 2 doubts. First, since Qian Guoyang had the intention of monopolizing it, why did he just tie Fei Ying up instead of killing him? Second, the design drawings and protractors were not found on Qian Guoyang's body. That is to say, there are other hunters or insiders. Luoqiu stopped in the middle of the corridor. There were bloody palm prints on his left and right, and in front of him was a locked door. There was also a bloody palm print on the door. This was the corridor utility room used to store cleaning and cleaning tools. It's locked, Yu Yi said after trying. Well, Uncle Ma brought someone to see the body. Luoqiu suddenly said, There's nothing to see here. Let's go to the restaurant and have a look. When the white cloth covering the body was taken away by Ma Haud, Fei Ying's gloomy face could not be hidden. He showed obvious surprise. This guy used a fake name and a fake ID card. His origin can be said to be completely unknown. Ma Haud looked at Fei Ying at this time. You are the only person we found who is related to him. If you still don't intend to cooperate, you know the consequences yourself. The identity of a nameless dead person is not easy to check, but for a living person like you, we always have a simple and effective way. Police officer, can you let me go first? Fei Ying suddenly said at this time. He was still tied up. Yes. To Fei Ying's surprise, Officer Ma agreed very straightforwardly. Fei Ying was a little surprised, and he couldn't help but secretly rejoice. But he was not happy for too long, because Sir Ma directly locked Fei Ying's and his own wrists with handcuffs at this time, and then handed the key to the old Captain Mu Enli's hand to let someone untie Fei Ying. You can tell the truth now, right? Ma Haud said calmly. It's my bad luck to meet a tough guy like you. Fei Ying glared at Ma Haud bitterly and said, I can say it, but I will only tell you one side. The two walked to the side. Fei Ying looked at Sir Ma and said, Officer Ma, first of all, I declare that this guy's death really has nothing to do with me. I can't kill him. What's your relationship? Why did he want to deal with you? Ma Haud asked directly. Fei Ying said helplessly, in fact, it's barely a cooperative relationship. I met this guy on the ship. We are going to find the treasure of this bayou cruise, so we plan to join forces. Ma Haud frowned and said in a deep voice, Make it clear. Having said that, Fei Ying was just a gentleman on the beam. Even if it was theft, it was much better than murder. He simply told some of the situation he knew. Anyway, he hadn't left the ship yet. He might still find a chance to get away, but if he didn't cooperate with this tough cop at this time, he would definitely suffer. Taking advantage of the situation was also one of the essentials of being a gentleman on the beam. That's what happened. After I was knocked out by this guy, I didn't wake up until you came. Fei Ying said with some anger, This bitch actually took away my drawings. Is what you said true? Is there really a treasure on the bayou cruise? Ma Haud looked at Fei Ying suspiciously. Fei Ying said, You also saw it. Didn't you find a lot of drawings of the bayou cruise in Qian Guiyang's room? Besides, why would I lie to you? It's not good for me to lie to you. With that said, Fei Ying glanced at the old captain and the crew not far away. He suddenly lowered his voice and said, Ah, sir, I only told you about the treasure. Why don't we work it out? You're a policeman, and your salary isn't high, right? It's also dangerous. If we find this treasure and split it 50-50, then we don't have to worry about it for the rest of our lives. Think about it, it's a treasure. Ma Haud slapped Fei Ying's head. Is that something you can take? Even if there is, it has to be turned over to the state. Or 60-40 is also fine. You 60, I 40, 70-30? Looking at Sir Ma's increasingly ugly face, Fei Ying cried, 91, is 91 done? It's not easy for me to come out. Don't hit, don't hit. Turn it over, turn it over. Don't hit. Humph. Ma Haud snorted coldly. I'll listen to the treasure first. But the most important thing now is to find the murderer. Fei Ying, from now on, you can't leave me, and you have to help me find the murderer. Fei Ying glanced at the handcuffs that connected the two people, and the key was in the hands of the old captain. How else can I leave you? As long as you're happy. Then, what about going to the toilet? Fei Ying swallowed his saliva and asked faintly. Ma Haud said disdainfully, Humph. You little thieves, do you always think that you can escape with such a lousy excuse as going to the toilet? You don't have to go to the toilet, use this. With that said, Sir Ma stuffed a mineral water bottle into Fei Ying's hands. Fei Ying took the bottle silently and asked faintly again, Ah, sir, did you drink this? Is there a problem? No, no problem. Fei Ying. What could he do? He was also very desperate. In the central control room, Mu Qinghai walked in. Deputy Captain Mu. The crew members here immediately stood up. Mu Qinghai said indifferently, The police in the city have been contacted. They will land in a helicopter later. You pay attention to the signal reception and guide them to land. Got it. Mu Qinghai nodded and suddenly asked, Has Officer Ma seen the surveillance video just now? The crew member said, He has seen it. It seems that he didn't find anything. Then he went out with the captain again. It seems that he went to the room of the deceased. Chapter 572. When the helicopter landed, the wind pressure blew Sir Ma's hair into a mess, but he didn't care at all. The moment the helicopter landed, he dragged Fei Ying and walked up directly. Lin Feng jumped down first and said directly, Sir Ma, the helicopter seats are limited, so I can only bring a guy and a forensic officer. Sir Ma. Xiao Bao, the forensic officer mentioned by Lin Feng, also came down to greet him. Old Qin still hasn't finished his vacation? Ma Hao shook his head. Xiao Bao, it's been hard on you this time. Xiao Bao nodded and said, It's okay. Sir Ma, if it's possible, I want to borrow the medical room on the ship. It shouldn't be a problem, right? According to what you said, the body of the deceased is still fresh. It will be better if we examine it now. The old captain who accompanied them nodded at this time and said, No problem, I will arrange it. If there is anything else you need, just say it. Then I will go and move the body first. Where is the body? Xiao Bao said seriously. I will let you take you there. The old captain randomly ordered a crew member to lead the way. Lin Feng looked at Fei Ying next to Ma Hao at this time and hesitated. Sir Ma, who is this person? He is a suspect for the time being. Ma Hao said indifferently, Lin Feng, there is no time for you and the guys to rest. The murderer must be caught before the Bayou cruise returns to land. We can't ask all the tourists on the ship to stay on board. But if the real murderer can't be caught before the return landing, it will be even more troublesome. The murderer will leave with the tourists. I understand. Lin Feng's face also became dignified. Let's return to the helicopter and call a few more guys over. Ma Hao nodded and said, Let's go to the scene and take a closer look while Xiao Bao is examining. Ren Xiling took out her mobile phone. The glimmer on the ceiling passage could no longer support her observation. Sister Ren, is it really useful for us to search here? Lizzie followed behind Ren Xiling, watching Ren Xiling's hips swaying in front of her. Speaking of which, she seemed to have never seen Ren Xiling wearing a skirt. Most of the time, he wore plain clothes with a white shirt and almost no makeup. Although he was a little far from being slovenly, it seemed that he didn't like to dress up. Regardless of whether it's useful or not, let's do it first. How do you know that the road ahead is not what you need? Ren Xiling said as she crawled ahead. Speaking of which, Lizzie, can you not touch me? Are you LES? Huh? I don't have any. No? Ren Xiling was stunned for a moment. She felt a tingling sensation rising from her stomach and then directly to her chest. Ren Xiling gasped and said, Lizzie, something is crawling on my body. Don't. F***ck, don't mess around. The little thing began to drill into the gap between the shirt and the underwear, and began to swim around the bulging twin peaks. How could Queen Ren of the magazine tolerate this? She stretched out her hand to catch the bulging thing. It must be a mouse. In such a place, of course, only a mouse could be thought of. F***ck. You still want to go? Where are you going? Sister Ren, don't kick me. Can you relax? This mouse may run away by itself. Lizzie, who was a monster, reminded her at this time. In fact, as long as she released a little bit of monster aura, she could scare away this little mouse. You want to run away after taking advantage of me? No way. If I can't kill you, I'll write my name upside down. Ren Xiling obviously didn't intend to let it go, and the range of her movements became more and more exaggerated. Sister Ren, you kicked me again. This time it's my face. Lizzie cried sadly. Lizzie, come on me. No, come on. Ren Xiling said loudly at this time. This little guy is too cunning. I'll trap it, you take it out for me. Ah? Come on? Yes. Climb on me, let's clamp this damn mouse to death together. Okay, Lizzie tried to climb onto Renzeiling's body in the narrow space. After a while, their legs were entangled together. But this posture made the space even narrower. How can you catch the bird like this? But Renzeiling said at this time, Hands? Put your hands into my clothes. I've sealed the neckline, it can't get out. Then I'll put my hands in, Lizzie said softly. Then, she slipped her right hand under Renzeiling's clothes and slipped it into her clothes. It was like congealed fat. It had a very delicate feeling unexpectedly. How to say it? Lizzie found that Renzeiling's body had a very good spirituality. But she knows that Renzeiling is indeed just an ordinary person, but there seems to be a very spiritual treasure around her, which has been nourishing her body. This is probably why she is so confident even without makeup. She often eats instant noodles, stays up late, smokes, and depraves herself, but still maintains the enviable quality of her body. How long are you going to touch it? I'll let you catch the mouse. You pervert. Unconsciously, I'm a little bit. Haha. Lizzie smiled awkwardly. I clamped it. Catch it quickly, Renzeiling suddenly said at this time. Clamped? Lizzie was stunned and subconsciously looked at Renzeiling's towering breasts. She moved her lips and didn't know where to start to complain. Renzeiling pressed her breasts hard at this time, and the towering and plump saintess breasts were squeezed at this time, but in the ravine of the breasts there was a small bulge at this time. The so-called clamping turned out to be this kind of clamping. Hurry up! This damn thing seems to be biting my button, Renzeiling urged at this time. I'm wearing a front button today. She always felt a little pressure. Lizzie sighed and reached out to touch the bulge in her breasts, the mouse. However, the rat was still struggling. It was struggling up and down in the ravine between the two peaks. Hurry up, I'm uncomfortable. The ceiling passageway was already very hot and stuffy. The heat coming from nowhere made Renzeiling sweat even more. Her body became sticky, especially under her neck, which had long been dripping with fragrant sweat. But this abominable little thing was still struggling up and down. I've got it. Lizzie finally touched the mouse's tail, and then slowly pulled it out of the ravine of the breasts. It's really a little mouse. Lizzie held the mouse's tail and lifted it up. Unexpectedly, Renzeiling grabbed her with one hand at this time. She didn't show any fear that a woman should have. Lizzie was not surprised. Last time when there was a rat disaster in the city, Sister Ren killed all the rats with a baseball bat. Lizzie originally planned to let this little guy go, but now she could only mourn for it in her heart for 3 seconds. You're dead, Renzeiling sneered, directly held the little mouse's body, and then directly smashed it down to the ceiling below directly. So cruel, Lizzie, do you feel a little bit heavy? Renzeiling suddenly said at this time. Do I? It seems to be really heavy? The two stacked bodies fell down at this time. In a few seconds, Renzeiling felt as if she was released, and her body was in a state of weightlessness directly. Wow! The two of them fell into a space surrounded by dense water mist. Renzeiling got up, but found that she was not very painful. She found that when she fell, she was on top of Lizzie. Lizzie, are you all right? I'm fine, I'm not afraid of pain. Lizzie smiled, and then said embarrassedly, Sister Ren, is it better for us to leave this place quickly? Renzeiling looked up subconsciously. This place surrounded by mist was obviously a bathhouse, and it was a men's bathhouse. A man who was taking a shower here looked at the two women who fell from the ceiling in amazement. The bath towel wrapped around his body suddenly fell to the ground, but he still looked at Renzeiling and Lizzie. Humph, so small. Renzeiling sneered. The man panicked and covered his private parts with his hands, opening his mouth. But the two women stood up and left directly as if nothing had happened. Wow! So cool. Sure enough, beer is the best. Outside the bathhouse, Renzeiling bought a bottle of beer from the vending machine and gulped it down. Lizzie said that she was not good at drinking, so she drank milk. The result is that we didn't find anything. Lizzie leaned against the wall and said helplessly. Renziling patted Lizzie's shoulder and said, "Haha, this is life. Let's go." In fact, the two had not really left the bathhouse, but just came to the locker room. At this time, obviously, someone pushed the door and came in. Renziling held Lizzie's head, and they hid behind a cabinet. It seemed that two people came in. At this time, one of them suddenly said, "Power outage?" The other said, "Yes, about 4 o'clock in the morning." The power outage lasted for about 10 minutes? Really? I was in the computer room and everything was normal. I don't know. Anyway, the power in the central control room was cut off for a while, and then it returned to normal. Nothing happened. I checked and there was no problem. Then the shift changed at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went back to my room to rest. Should we talk to the captain? After all, someone died. It's not necessary, the man said casually. The vice-captain was also there when the power was cut off. And it just stopped for a while, so it didn't affect anything. Besides, the vice-captain will definitely tell the police about this kind of thing, so why should I get involved? Don't you think it's not bad enough? Chapter 573. Please sit. What would the two of you like to eat? The waiter was very polite and even warmly pulled out stools for Luocio and Yu Yi, offering the menu. Luocio looked at the menu for a while, then raised his head and asked, "Is there pufferfish?" "Oh, I'm sorry," the waiter said apologetically. "If you order now, I don't think it can be made." Luocio asked curiously, "But isn't it written on the menu? And it's a signature dish." The waiter said, "Sir, you know, pufferfish is very difficult to handle. If the master's technique is wrong, it will be very troublesome for people to eat it. This pufferfish dish is indeed our restaurant's signature dish, but the only master in our restaurant who can handle pufferfish got it when we boarded the ship, so he can't hold a knife for now." Luocio nodded. "So, there's no pufferfish here." The waiter said, "That's not the case, the boss bought the goods. But the master can't handle it, so he can only put it in the freezer. Anyway, it won't spoil, just not as fresh." Boss Luo nodded and suddenly asked, "There should be a lot of people who come here to eat pufferfish, right?" The waiter was quite good-tempered. He smiled, then glanced at the front desk, lowered his voice and said, "To be honest, although it's a signature dish, the sales are really not good. You know, if this pufferfish is not delicious, people will die, so many people don't dare to eat it. The boss is just making a gimmick. In fact, only a few portions are sold a day. But in fact, if you dare to eat it, the taste is really good. I've eaten it before, and the taste is simply indescribable. You will definitely want to eat it a second time after eating it once." "But there isn't one now, right?" Yu Yi said indifferently at this time. The waiter could only smile awkwardly, looking at this extremely beautiful woman in a daze, as if he couldn't move his eyes away. "But, I'm serious. This pufferfish is really delicious. Even our captain here is a fan." "Captain, are you here to eat too?" Luocio put down the menu. "Yes, a regular customer." The waiter pointed at the corner of the restaurant. "Every time we come, the captain will sit there and order a pufferfish dish." It was a position where one could see the sea. "Was the captain here yesterday?" Yu Yi asked curiously. The waiter revealed an infatuated expression and subconsciously said, "Yesterday afternoon, he also came, but he didn't get to eat pufferfish, so he left after chatting with the master." "Give us a sushi platter," Yu Yi said with a smile. "That's all." The waiter nodded and left this kind of Japanese restaurant with some disappointment. The kitchen was open, so the waiter went directly to the kitchen table. Perhaps it was because someone had died on the deck, but many tourists did not go out. The entertainment district was much quieter, and there were only a few people in the restaurant. An elderly chef was boiling soup in the kitchen. His wrist was wrapped in gauze. He was probably the chef who could handle the pufferfish. The other two chefs were also tinkering with something. "What did you order?" Probably because he was too idle, the young chef, who was originally looking at the menu, asked in boredom at this time. The waiter shrugged and said, "Originally, I ordered pufferfish, but there was none, so I ordered a platter." Pufferfish. The young chef nodded, then suddenly looked at the old chef and said, "By the way, master, I checked the freezer in the morning, and it seems that there is one pufferfish missing." The old chef, who was stirring the soup pot, turned his head. "Is it missing? There are a total of 12 pufferfish. Did you count clearly?" "Yes, there are only 11 pufferfish." 11 pufferfish? Did I remember it wrong? The old chef frowned. "I'll look at the purchase list later. You finish the dishes first." "Okay." After a while. "Sir, miss, your sushi platter." The waiter came back with the plate. Luocio smiled and said, "Please pack it up, and we'll take it away." The palm print stopped here. Did it fall from the ceiling? Lin Feng looked up at the top of the corridor. Ma Hao shook his head and said, "If it fell from above, would the ceiling still be fine? Besides, the deceased lost so much blood. Is there no blood stain on it?" "That's true." Lin Feng nodded, and then he was puzzled. "But the palm started here. Can this person appear out of thin air? The surveillance didn't capture it. Isn't this night too magical?" With that said, Lin Feng knocked on the wall next to him. "What are you knocking on?" Ma Hao said in a daze. Lin Feng said, "I'm looking to see if there is a secret door or something like that. Maybe it came out from a secret door?" Ma Hao also knocked on the wall. Fei Ying, who was dragged by Sir Ma, looked at the two of them with an expression of looking at an idiot. He shook his head and said, "Ah, sir, if there is a secret door here, it won't be in this structure." "What's your opinion?" Ma Hao stared at Fei Ying. "Ah, sir, why don't you let me go first, and I'll give you some advice? I promise I won't leave." Fei Ying smiled. "If you don't say it, I promise I won't embarrass you," Ma Hao said seriously. Fei Ying. He had really never seen such a shameless person before. "Uncle Ma, you're really here." Suddenly there was Luocio's voice. Ma Hao looked back and saw Luocio and Yu Yi walking over side by side, so he asked curiously, "Little Luocio, why are you here? Aren't you accompanying your auntie?" Luocio smiled and said, "I saw someone guarding on the deck, so I knew you were here. Then the policeman uncle saw me and didn't say anything. He just told me you were here and let me in." After all, there was a layer of relationship. The people in the whole brigade admired the person who died bravely. When they saw his child, they more or less remembered the friendship. If Ren Xiling could come and go as she pleased, then in fact, Luocio was the same. It was just that this child hardly used this privilege, and never showed anything. This was why Ma Hao was 100 times more at ease with Luocio than with Ren Xiling. "That guy too." Ma Hao shook his head. "Forget it. Since you're here, there's nothing to see. Let's eat something." Luocio smiled and said, "Uncle Ma, you didn't have time to eat breakfast. It's already 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You should be hungry. Sushi platter, is that okay?" "Speaking of which, I'm really hungry." Ma Hao suddenly had a big appetite. Since he couldn't control his physical labor last night until now, his stomach was completely empty. At this moment, his stomach was rumbling with hunger. How could he hold it back? "You're still the best to me. If I relied on your woman, she probably wouldn't even give me water to drink." Ma Hao happily took the takeout box from Yu Ye's hand. "Lin Feng, you eat too. When you're full, you can work." Looking at the two police officers sharing the sushi here, Fei Ying subconsciously swallowed his saliva. He was also in a completely empty state for the whole night and the whole morning. He didn't even drink a sip of water. The cruelest thing in the world was that when you were hungry, the food was clearly in front of you, but you couldn't enjoy it. "Do you want to eat?" Ma Hao smiled and sent a piece of sushi to Fei Ying. Fei Ying immediately stretched out his hand with a smile. Unexpectedly, Ma Hao directly retracted his palm and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing happily. "So cheap." Ah, sir, I surrender. Did I say it? Fei Ying could only helplessly say, I'll tell you my findings. Can you at least let me eat something? Tell me. If it's useful, there will be a reward. Ma Hao nodded. Fei Ying looked at the sushi that was not much left and quickly said, Ah, sir, have you ever thought that Qian Guoyang didn't start walking from here? Ma Hao was stunned. What do you mean? Fei Ying pointed to the handprint here and said, The handprint started from here, but this place is special. The camera can't capture the position of the corner, so it's a blind spot. You can only see Qian Guoyang appear from this place at most, right? Fei Ying pointed to a certain position in the passage that turned the corner toward the deck. From here, it should be the picture of Qian Guoyang appearing, right? Ma Hao frowned. What Fei Ying said was true. The picture on the surveillance video was indeed so. But this guy hadn't seen it before, but he could actually infer it. He didn't know where he came from. He was afraid that he was not as simple as a little thief. And then? And then, the palm lines don't match. Fei Ying said coldly, This bloody handprint looks like it's extended all the way. But it's actually two different handprints. Their palm lines are not consistent. Fei Ying dragged Ma Hao to a door in the passage, which was marked as a utility room. He pointed to the handprint on the door and said, After this door, come to the position where the corner begins to appear. This section is completely different from the one leading to the deck. Really? Lin Feng was stunned. He frowned and matched his palm with it. Then, he compared it one by one and said, It's true. There is some difference in the length of the little finger from the front to the back. It's really different. But you can see that the palm lines are different? Your eyes are very good. Fei Ying said proudly at this time, How is it? Ah, sir, am I right? Can you give me something to eat now? Ma Hao snorted coldly and stuffed the box directly into Fei Ying's hand. Eat it. You've done a good job this time. Fei Ying laughed twice and felt that his stomach was out of control. He opened the box without saying a word, but he could only see a pile of wasabi that had been destroyed. How could he still see the existence of sushi? The two policemen next to him pretended to see nothing and looked at the ceiling. Ma Hao suddenly burped and picked his teeth with his fingers. Fei Ying threw the box on the ground and choked on the wasabi that he had eaten when he was in grief and indignation at the murder scene. Chapter 574. The palm print is indeed different, but the blood stain should be the same. Xiao Bao, who was wearing gloves, looked at the two test strips in his hand. It should be said that the blood type is the same, but whether it is from the same person or not, we need to compare the DNA. After Ma Hao heard that, he immediately said, Then you should do the DNA comparison as soon as possible. Sir Ma, this will take too long. I think the earliest would be tomorrow. Xiao Bao shook his head and said, The equipment in the medical room is not very complete. It is enough for an autopsy, but it is not enough for a more detailed examination. Ma Hao paused. Did you find anything on Qian Guoyang's body? Xiao Bao said, Let's talk about the stab wound on the chest first. I found that the stab wound on the chest should be caused by two different stab wounds. Ma Hao frowned and said, What do you mean by two stab wounds? Xiao Bao used his finger as a weapon and inserted it into his chest. He explained, First, the first stab was from here, but the stab was not deep enough to cause fatal damage. Then, the second stab was made, and the second stab was directly into the heart. Two stab wounds? Could it be that the murderer did not have enough strength the first time, so he did it again? Lin Feng thought and asked. We can't rule out that possibility, Xiao Bao said seriously, but it could also be two different people who did it one after the other. Other than the victim's fingerprints, there were no other suspicious fingerprints on the weapon, so I can't be sure how many there were, but I think it's more likely that there was one. I personally believe Officer Lin's theory. Because the first stab was not enough, the second stab was made. Did you find anything else? Ma Hao continued to ask. Xiao Bao said, Also, I found a very small wound on the victim's thigh. The blood sample showed signs of poisoning. As for what kind of poison it is, we can only wait for the results from the bureau. In any case, I sent the data back. He was poisoned? Ma Haud was stunned. Xiao Bao nodded. There should be no difference, and the poisoning time is longer. At this time, a crew member rushed to the scene of the murder. He had run all the way here, so he was panting. Officer Ma, I've found the key to the utility room that you wanted. Open this door and let me see. Thus, the door that was stained with the handprint was directly opened. A stench filled the air. Lin Feng held a flashlight and illuminated the interior of the room. It was a very small space. Basically, it was filled with cleaning tools, disinfectants, detergents, and the like. However, Lin Feng squatted down and looked carefully for a while, then stood up and shook his head. Sir Ma, I didn't find anything. This utility room seems to have not been opened for a long time. There is dust on the ground, but I didn't find any footprints. It seems that the dead can't come out from here. Besides, a dying man can't just lock the door. He wouldn't have the key, right? I don't get it. Ma Haud scratched his head in annoyance. At this time, the old captain, Mu Enli, walked over slowly and asked seriously, Officer, is there anything you found? Ma Haud shook his head. There is nothing particularly useful. The old captain said at this time, in this case, why don't you take a break first? I have booked a restaurant for everyone. Even if you can't eat, you should at least take a break. Ma Haud had just finished eating, so he was not very hungry. However, considering that Xiao Bao and the police officer outside were probably exhausted, he had to nod and agree. Luoqiu, you come along too. Sir Ma looked at Boss Luo, who had been listening quietly at the scene, and suddenly said, Miss, you are so beautiful. On the way to the restaurant, Fei Ying suddenly whistled at a woman passing by. He even touched the girl's ear shamelessly, which immediately caused the other party to scream. The girl was so scared that she ran away as if she had seen a ghost. When Ma Haud saw this, he twisted Fei Ying's arm and shouted, Fei Ying, do you want to add another charge of harassment? Ah, sir, as the saying goes, a fair lady is a good match for a gentleman. Besides, she was shy and walked away. She didn't say anything, right? Fei Ying laughed and said, There are so many male students in the school who lift the skirts of female students. Why don't you catch them? Motherf ****. Ma Haud slapped the back of Fei Ying's head hard and said fiercely, You better behave yourself. Otherwise, I will hang you on the railing of the boat and let you be a salted fish. Ah, sir, are you abusing me? Okay. Don't use violence. I will be quiet. Fei Ying looked at Ma Haud's thunderous face with fear and quickly begged for mercy. Let me eat something. I promise to behave myself. Let's go. Ma Haud pulled Fei Ying and continued to walk. Don't walk so fast. Ah, sir, I have no strength. While talking nonsense with Officer Ma, Fei Ying quietly pinched the hand that was not locked at this time. Inside, there was a black U-shaped hairpin, the one that was just touched from the hair of the woman who was being molested. Unexpectedly, Fei Ying, who was secretly delighted, suddenly met a line of sight at this time, the young man who didn't look like a policeman, but the police treated him particularly well. Fei Ying was stunned. He saw that the young man named Luoqiu glanced at him at this time with a faint smile. Fei Ying frowned subconsciously, but found that Luoqiu seemed to have found nothing. He walked on his own and no longer looked at him. Am I being paranoid? Fei Ying muttered, but the feeling of being watched just now, he seemed to have felt it somewhere before. When the group came to the restaurant arranged by the captain, Ma Haud was surprised to find that before they arrived, there were already acquaintances here, Ren Xiling and Li Zi. Luoqiu. Here. I have ordered a lot of delicious food for you. Ren Xiling waved directly at this time. I have eaten. I am not hungry. Luoqiu shook his head calmly. Ren Xiling's palms under the table were clenched into fists, but the expression on her face was still relaxed if it weren't for the unusual twitching of her eyelids. Ma Howd asked another police officer to come over at this time. He transferred his handcuffs to the police officer's hands and asked him to handcuff Fei Ying. You take him over there to eat. Remember, don't let him walk around, let alone go to the toilet. If he has a stomachache or something, let him poop out on the spot if you have the ability. Fei Ying moved his lips and was pulled away by the police officer in despair. He sat at another table and quietly raised his finger at Ma Howd. He whispered, "You win." Ma Howd didn't even look at him. He released his hands and sat down comfortably. He asked, "Why are you here?" Li Zi bit the fork and said, "Officer Ma, we met the old captain on the way. He said that he had arranged a restaurant. Sister Ren said that she might as well wait for you here." Ma Howd frowned and looked at Ren Xiling. "Say, you really didn't cause trouble everywhere?" "Ma Howd, to put it nicely, what do you mean by causing trouble?" Ren Xiling snorted coldly. "Think about it. When have I not helped? If you have the ability, don't ask me for information in the future. If you have the ability, I will be thankful if you charge me less every time. In order to collect the informant fee for you, I have to eat dirt every month." Luoqiu pulled out a chair for Yu Yi and let her sit down first. Then, he sat down quietly and looked at Ma Howd and Ren Xiling bickering with a smile. Okay, don't quarrel." Li Zi quickly finished the quarrel and said, "Officer Ma, we may have made a contribution this time. Sister Ren and I found something." Ma Howd was surprised. "Oh? Tell me about it." Auntie Ren said, "Pay up." Ma Howd said wittily, "The child is still here. Don't be like this. Image. Only then did Auntie Ren remember that her future daughter-in-law was still here. Her future mother-in-law really needed to maintain her image, so she cleared her throat and said gently, "I said that talking about money hurts feelings, but you didn't listen to me. Really, old Ma, we have been friends for so many years. Do you think I am the kind of person who only cares about money?" Cough. Li Zi and I found that there was a short power outage in the central control room at around 4 o'clock last night. Power outage? Ma Howd was taken aback and frowned. "Is it true? When the captain and I went to the monitoring room, he didn't mention this to me." Ren Xiling said, "It should be true. I heard it from a crew member. In addition, the person you saw in the monitoring room in the morning should not be the one from last night. There was a shift change between them." Ma Howd pondered for a while. "What else?" Ren Xiling spread her palms and said, "It seems that the deputy captain Mu Qinghai was also there at that time." Ma Howd subconsciously looked at the old captain at this time. As the captain, Mu Enli had a reason to sit here and accompany them. Seeing Officer Ma's gaze, the old captain nodded and said, "Officer Ma, I will confirm this matter immediately." "Sorry to trouble you," Ma Howd said. "By the way, call the crew members and the deputy captain who were on duty at that time. I want to ask them personally." "Okay." The old captain's face was a little dignified, and he quickly left his seat. Li Zi suddenly put down the food in her hand at this time, looked outside the restaurant, and made a soft sound. "That woman, I seem to have seen her before? Who is it?" Ren Xiling looked curiously in the direction Li Zi was looking at. In front of the cupboard in front of a shop opposite the restaurant, a woman with a headscarf was looking over here, but she immediately turned her head away. Li Zi said, I remember. I saw her at the murder scene. But after she was seen by me, she immediately walked away." Ma Howd frowned and turned her head in an instant. She saw the woman in front of the cupboard suddenly lowered her head and walked away quickly. Sir Ma stood up abruptly. Lin Feng chase after her. "Well, you look after Fei Ying." With that, the two of them hurriedly ran out of the restaurant. But soon after, Sir Ma and Lin Feng came back with a frustrated look. "We lost her. We don't know where she went." "You two are together, yet you let a woman get lost?" Ren Xiling was surprised. "There is no one outside now, right?" Lin Feng said angrily. This woman is not like an ordinary person. Looking at the route she chose and calmly walking, it's like she has received anti-tracking skills. Yes. Ma Hao nodded and said, she seemed to be able to hear us. I haven't stood up yet, and she left immediately. Her vigilance is too with that. Ma Hao and Lin Feng looked at each other. They pulled out the chairs at the same time, squatted down, and reached out to touch something under the table. Got it, it's here. Lin Feng put a small black thing the size of 2 fingers on the table at this time. This is a wiretap? When was it installed here? Ren Xiling reached out and picked up the wiretap. Old Ma, this thing doesn't look like an ordinary one. Of course, this is not an ordinary one. If I'm not mistaken, this should be one of the equipment of the German GSG-9 Special Forces. Of course, it is also popular among the agents of many countries. The effective distance can reach. This was the police officer who came over and took the wiretap from Ren Xiling's hand. Listening to the encyclopedic explanation, Ma Hao was suddenly stunned. She looked at the police officer and suddenly said angrily, You? Didn't I ask you to watch Fei Ying? Sir Ma, it's okay. Fei Ying, he went. The police officer subconsciously raised his arm, and suddenly his face changed slightly. Where was Fei Ying? Only the lonely handcuffs were still hanging on his arm. There. Li Zi stood up and pointed her finger outside the restaurant. Don't let him run away! Fei Ying looked at Ma Hao through the glass at this time, who was shocked and angry. He shook his head and buttocks, and at the same time, he made a third finger gesture with both hands. Then he laughed and ran away. Damn it! If I don't dry you into a salted fish, I'll get off the boat on my stomach. Ma Hao roared and ran out in a straight line. Lin Feng and the other police officers also chased out together. Ren Xiling shook her head, supported her chin on the table with her hand, and sighed. Sure enough, Ma Hao is a good-for-nothing. I don't know how she solved the case for so many years. By the way, Luoqiu, are you thirsty? Shall I get you something to drink? I'm not thirsty. Luoqiu shook her head, then looked at Yu Yi and said, Yu Yi, pack some food. Auntie is alone in the room. She should be hungry. Let's go and see her. Okay. So Auntie ran under the table again. Well, this time, she pinched Li Zi's thigh. Sister Ren, you can't do this. Li Zi, who was unjustly attacked while eating, looked at her pitifully. In a dark room in the engine room, a table had been swept, and only a lamp was turned on. At this time, on the smooth table, a rather old drawing had been spread out. On the drawing there was a circular protractor. A palm was constantly pushing the protractor at this time. Suddenly, the palm stopped. Chapter 575. Miss Maid retracted her palm from the corridor wall, then looked at Luoqiu and said softly, Master, Fei Ying has escaped. Officer Ma and the others seem to have been fooled. Seems? Luoqiu chuckled. It's more than that. Fei Ying should be a carefree person, so it should be a fight. Yu Yi nodded slowly. This Fei Ying is indeed not a bad person, Master. Miss Maid's eyes narrowed slightly, but Luoqiu shook his head gently. Boss Luo, who was carrying the food box, continued to walk forward at this time, back to Mrs. Ma's room. The master and servant pretended that nothing had happened as they walked. Just as they turned a corner, they saw an ordinary-looking woman in her 30s. She was wearing plain glasses and neat bangs. They passed by each other. Wait a minute. The woman suddenly spoke behind them. Luoqiu and Yu Yi turned around and saw the woman pick up a card from the ground, the kind used to open the door. The woman smiled, stretched out the room card she picked up, and said politely, You dropped something. This is not mine. Luoqiu shook his head. Yu Yi also took out the room card directly to prove it at this time. I see. Sorry, I made a mistake. The woman nodded, then suddenly said, I don't know who dropped it here, but I'm in a hurry. Otherwise, can you do me a favor and send the room card to the lost property office? Luoqiu glanced at the woman, then nodded gently. The woman smiled and said, Then I'll have to trouble you. Little brother, you're really a good person. I thought you would refuse. It's no trouble. The woman glanced at Yu Yi next to the boss again, then pursed her lips and smiled. Little brother, no wonder you can find such a beautiful girlfriend. Boss Luo didn't explain anything. After taking the room card from the woman left quickly. It seemed that she was really in a hurry. Until the woman completely disappeared from sight, Yu Yi smiled and said, "This lady just escaped from Officer Ma's pursuit and came to contact Master. I don't know what she wants to do." The room card was quietly left on the ground by the woman. This couldn't be hidden from Yu Ye's eyes. Naturally, it couldn't be hidden from Boss Luo. Luoqiu just smiled slightly, retracted his gaze, and looked at Yu Yi instead. He stretched out his hand like a noble young master inviting a noble lady to dance, and said softly, "Let's go in hand in this lost property." Yu Yi was stunned for a moment, but then she regained her calm and tranquil appearance. Although she wasn't wearing a maid's skirt, she lifted the skirt and put her fingers between Luoqiu's fingertip. Sir Ma and his party didn't catch the escaping Fei Ying in the end. They returned to the restaurant in a mess. Looking at Sir Ma and his party being wet and colorful, and even having chicken feathers on their heads, Auntie Ren naturally held her stomach and pounded the table and burst into laughter. She felt that she really got her revenge. All her anger temporarily disappeared, so she kindly found a towel to wipe them. F***ck. This Fei Ying is just like a wild monkey. He's so agile that he doesn't look like a human. Ma Haud cursed indignantly as he wiped his body. Lin Feng nodded in agreement and said angrily, "Don't let me see him next time. I must kill him." "Okay, unless he jumps into the sea, he can't escape." Ren Xiling crossed her legs at this time and said, "When you went out to chase him just now, I thought for a while. What's the origin of this woman who used the bug?" Ma Haud raised his head and asked, "What's the origin?" Ren Xiling looked at the third police officer. "Didn't Alai just say that this bug is a high-grade military product? How can ordinary people get it?" Police officer Alai nodded. "Indeed, let alone ordinary people, we may not have this kind of equipment in our system. Of course, except for the special department." "So?" Ma Haud looked at Ren Xiling and asked. Auntie Ren shrugged and said, "I can't think of it. There are too few clues. But this woman used this kind of thing to eavesdrop on our conversation. She probably has something to do with this murder case. Old Ma, you said that Qian Guoyang's identity was fake, but he died here. And there's also a woman of unknown origin who used this kind of high-grade military goods. I don't understand. What are these two guys aiming for? You said that they wanted to have sex for a trip. Who would believe it? Sister Ren is really down-to-earth whenever she speaks." Li Zi had an interesting look on her face. "Is it also for that?" Ma Haud seemed to think of something at this moment, and his face became slightly dignified. "Sir Ma, what did you find?" Lin Feng asked curiously. Ma Haud pondered at this moment, then looked at everyone and said, "About Fei Ying, aren't you curious about why I locked him up? In fact, in addition to finding him in Qian Guoyang's room, there is another thing, that is, Sir Ma told them about the treasure that Fei Ying revealed. This guy actually said that he would cooperate with me and quietly divide the treasure. Am I, Ma Haud, that kind of person? Wait, does this Bayou cruise ship really have treasure?" Ren Xiling was stunned and said in surprise, "Didn't you say before that this was just a gimmick to attract tourists and crew members?" "Shoo!" Ma Haud made a silent gesture. Although this restaurant was arranged by the captain for them, it was not reserved. There were still 2 or 3 tables for ordinary people who came to eat. Ren Xiling pursed her lips. Ma Haud said, "At first, I just listened. But looking at Fei Ying's skill, Qian Guoyang's fake identity, and this woman of unknown origin, I increasingly feel that this matter is likely to be true. In the vast sea, for the legendary treasure, treasure hunters have been dispatched." Li Zi held a small circle with both hands at this time, and her eyes flashed with excitement. Dream on. Go away. Ren Xiling pushed Li Zi's face and said, but looking at Fei Ying's ability to fool you and unlock the lock, he has a bit of the style of a treasure hunter. Lin Feng suggested at this time, Sir Ma, should we ask the captain about the treasure? Didn't he say that he has been the captain of the Bayou cruise ship for decades? I think it's okay. Ren Xiling thought and said, Old Ma, I always feel that there is something wrong with the captain. What do you mean? Ren Xiling blinked and said, don't you think the captain is too calm? Logically speaking, when this kind of thing happens on the ship, the one with the biggest headache should be the captain, right? But you see, this Mu Enli doesn't look like he is worried at all. He is calm, just like an old gentleman. In that case, it seems to be. Ma Haud recalled the process of his contact with Mu Enli. I remember when Qian Guoyang's body was just found, he was really calm. That surprised me. Shoo, the captain is here. Ren Xiling looked outside the restaurant and said, Old Ma, take the opportunity to ask him about the treasure later and see what he has to say. At this time, Captain Mu Enli walked into the restaurant with Deputy Captain Mu Qinghai. Officer Ma, I brought the deputy captain. You can ask him what happened in the middle of the night. Ma Haud cleared his throat. Deputy Captain, at 4 o'clock in the morning last night, was there a power outage in the central control room? Mu Qinghai's face did not show anything at this time. He nodded and said, there was a power outage. It lasted for about 15 minutes. Ma Haud frowned and said, then why didn't you mention this? Mu Qinghai shook his head and said, Officer, since the body was found in the morning, I have done all kinds of things as ordered. You have not asked me about this. You tell me, how should I mention this to you? But the power outage in the central control room is such a big thing. You can't not mention it to the captain, right? Ma Haud snorted coldly, but the captain also did not mention it to me. Mu Qinghai said, this is indeed my dereliction of duty. My judgment at the time was not to disturb the captain, because... Mu Qinghai paused, glanced at Mu Enli and said slowly, the captain's health is not very good. He has to take medicine every day to sleep, so I don't want to disturb the captain's rest. Mu Enli's gaze moved slightly, but there was no expression. Mu Qinghai shook his head and said, besides, the power outage only lasted for 10 minutes. It only disconnected the ordinary equipment inside. There is another set of power systems in the central control room that is normal. It will not affect the navigation of the Bayou cruise ship. So, did it affect the monitoring system at that time? This was what Ma Haud was most concerned about. Mu Qinghai shook his head and said, Officer, this will not affect it because the monitoring system itself is not connected to an external power source. Ma Haud still frowned. So, during the power outage, have you ever left? Mu Qinghai nodded. This is indeed true. We naturally have to go to the power room to see why there was a power outage. How long did you leave? Probably less than 10 minutes. After you came back, did you leave? Mu Qinghai shook his head. No. After waiting for the shift change, I went back to my room to rest for a while. Then, I followed the original filming plan until the deceased was found. Ma Haud nodded, and I understand. Deputy Captain, thank you for your cooperation. I'm sorry to disturb your time. It's okay, as long as I can help you. Mu Qinghai said seriously. Ma Haud turned his head again and said, Captain, let the Deputy Captain go back to work. We just made some noise. I guess we have to deal with it properly. I'm sorry. We will take care of it. Don't worry. Mu Enli said calmly, Qinghai, you go first. After Mu Qinghai left, Ma Haud suddenly looked at the old captain. Captain, there is something I want to ask you. Officer Ma, go ahead. Officer Ma narrowed his eyes and said, Captain, can you tell me about the Bayou cruise ship's treasure? You have been here from the beginning. You should be the clearest about it, right? The old captain was taken aback and did not speak immediately. He just took off his hat, pulled out a stool and sat down. After a while, he said slowly, and this is just a rumor. Why did Officer Ma ask about this? It may be related to this case, so I intend to understand it. Ma Hao looked at the old captain's every move seriously, therefore it is best for the captain to tell me the whole story. Chapter 576. What? You made this up? In the restaurant, Ma Hao pressed her hands on the table and stood up abruptly, immediately attracting the attention of several guests in the restaurant. But Sir Ma, who had seen a big scene, immediately glared and roared, "What are you looking at? Do you want to be stared at by the police?" Everyone bowed their heads to eat. Ma Hao then acted as if nothing had happened. She sat down again, looked at the old captain, frowned and asked, "Captain, I don't understand why you made up such a rumor. Is it really just to make a gimmick to attract people?" The old captain shook his head and said, "In fact, I didn't think the effect would be so good at first. But later, when it spread, it attracted a lot of tourists, and many people came to interview for a job. I remember that at that time, even the most difficult and tiring cabin repair apprenticeship had many people rushing to do it." Officer Ma. Sir Ma suddenly choked, but she obviously didn't drink water. Ren Xiling had to roll her eyes and asked, "Old Captain, you said that you didn't want it to be like this at the beginning. Then why?" The old captain sighed and said, "Because it was haunted at that time." "Haunted?" Li Zi blinked. "What kind of spirit, ghost?" The old captain shook his head and said, "I haven't seen what it looks like. It was just spread among the crew at that time. Some people said that they saw a white shadow floating by, and some said that they saw a horrible face. There were also people who heard a sad voice when they were patrolling at night. Anyway, there were all kinds of rumors at that time, and it made people panic. At that time, it was still the 1990s, and the opening time was not long. Most of the people were still ignorant." The old captain recalled and said, "Many people resigned because they were afraid. The company also invited a Taoist priest to perform a ritual at that time. In fact, it didn't work. Some people still said that they could encounter strange things. Later, the matter spread, and not many tourists were willing to board the ship. At that time, the company couldn't do it for the time being, so they temporarily used the Bayou cruise ship as a cargo ship for a while." Ma Hao was stunned and said, "That's not right. If the haunting spread, why didn't I know about it? Am I also a person of that era?" The old captain glanced at Sir Ma and said indifferently, "That's because the Bayou cruise ship was not in this city at the beginning. It was about half a year of cargo transport before it was officially registered here. Of course, it was not mentioned at all to the public. It was only said that it was the first voyage. The Bayou cruise ship changed its name when it came here. At first, it was called the Vidona cruise ship." "How could there be such a thing?" Ma Hao shook his head. "Sure enough, all businessmen are evil. What happened later?" "And you started spreading." The old captain said indifferently, "Officer, I'm the captain of this ship. Naturally, I have the responsibility to resolve the problems on board." "What?" "In order to prevent the rumors of the haunted city from spreading, I secretly spread the news about the treasure. Young people are always easily driven by benefits. I originally planned to use it to cover up the rumors of ghosts, but I didn't expect that after the news of the treasure spread, it would become a huge topic of discussion, resulting in a period of time when tourists crazily bought tickets, and there were also many people who came to work. The company was happy to see it, so naturally, they listened to it." Ma Hao suddenly said, "No wonder. The Bayou cruise ship has the treasure, but the flight has never stopped. It was popular for a while, but the cruise company didn't do anything. I didn't hear anything about the Bayou cruise ship entering the shipyard. Like I said, if there is a treasure, will your company let it go?" The old captain said, "Officer Ma, this is the origin of the treasure. But this is just a fiction. Why do you think it is related to this murder case?" Ma Hao scratched his head and said, "It's nothing. It's just a little thief talking nonsense. Ha ha, I figured it out. It's okay. It's totally okay. TSK. But under the table, Ma Hao's foot was stepped on by Auntie Rin, who was sitting opposite him. Ren Xiling suddenly asked at this time, "Old Captain, you are really amazing. You solved this matter with a simple move. How did you come up with the idea of the treasure? After all, the Bayou cruise ship was introduced from abroad. It must be checked inside and out before delivery. It shouldn't be easy to let others believe that there are treasures on such a ship, right?" The old captain was stunned at this time. "Don't you know?" "Know what?" Ma Hao was stunned. The old captain said seriously, "The Bayou cruise ship is not a cruise ship of origin. Its predecessor was a warship. It had participated in the pirate annihilation battle in Somalia. Later it was sunk. Then, it was decommissioned and transformed into a cruise ship. Then, it was exported to developed countries." Ren Xiling shook her head in amazement. The Bayou cruise ship's introduction booklet did not mention it at all. The old captain suddenly said, "Yes, when this part of the information came to this city, it was no longer printed in the booklet." "But what does this have to do with the treasure?" Ren Xiling asked. The old captain said, "At the beginning, the Bayou cruise ship had a bad record of being hijacked. Although it was recovered later, it was not a glorious thing after all. Because not many people know about this matter. Those who know have been given a gag order, so I used this matter to come up with the treasure." The old captain drank the water and then slowly said, "I made up a story, saying that when the Bayou cruise ship was hijacked, the pirates used it to transport wealth. Although it was later recaptured by the Navy, a lot of treasure was recovered. But in fact, there is a very valuable treasure hidden by the pirates in the depths of the Bayou cruise ship. Unless the Bayou cruise ship is completely dismantled, no one knows where the treasure is except for the pirate leader. Anyway, I just made up a story, but I didn't expect so many people to believe it. After all, it is a treasure." Ren Xiling shrugged, glanced at Sir Ma and sneered. "There are many people who have unrealistic fantasies and want to get rich overnight." Ma Hao. Sir Ma looked down at the menu and suddenly said, "Lin Feng, are you hungry? Do you want a plate of oysters?" Roar. Ren Xiling shook her head, looked at the captain and said, "But, Captain, since the Bayou cruise ship was hijacked by pirates and given a gag order, how did you know?" The old captain said, "Before I was the captain of the Bayou cruise ship, I was already on it. I used to be a non-staff member of the Navy. But because I was an overseas Chinese, I was never put in an important position and was even ostracized. After the Bayou cruise ship was sunk and salvaged, I retired. Later, I was arranged to be a foreman in a large shipyard. I didn't expect the Bayou cruise ship to be later sent to the same shipyard for transformation. Later, probably my luck came. The domestic company came to look for an imported ship. After I contacted them, they gave me good conditions and hoped that I could be the captain of the new ship. I agreed." The old captain sighed slowly. His eyes were a little cloudy. "At first, I just wanted to use this opportunity to return to my country and take things one step at a time. I didn't expect that I would be a captain for 30 years. In life, there will always be some unexpected things." Ma Hao naturally sighed. He patted the old captain's arm and said, "Captain, our country is getting better and better. It's right to come back." The old captain just smiled. At this time, his phone suddenly rang. After a while, the old captain hung up and said, "I'm sorry, Officer Ma. There is a special phone number given to me by the company in the central control room. I have to go there." "Okay, you go first." Ma Hao nodded. After the old captain left, Ma Hao suddenly stood up, pointed at Auntie Ren and roared, You just stepped on me." "I didn't." Ren Xiling widened her watery eyes. "Which eye of yours saw me stepping on you? Damn, can you be more shameless?" Unexpectedly, Auntie Ren said seriously, "Well, it must be haunted. Didn't the captain just say that there was a ghost? Old Ma, did you do something wrong and get targeted by a ghost?" Ma Howd pointed to the sky and scolded, "Even if it is a ghost, it must be a troublesome ghost. Stingy ghost." Tsk. Ren Xiling gave a third middle finger as a greeting, and then muttered, "This old captain, if the Navy fought pirates in the past, he would have seen such a big scene. It seems reasonable that he didn't react when he saw a dead person. After all, many people will die in a naval battle." Lin Feng said helplessly, "In other words, we asked for nothing? Now we can only rely on Xiao Bao." Ma Howd also sighed and said, "I hope he can give us some clues." "Right." Ma Howd suddenly recovered his spirit. "Let's continue to catch people. That woman and Fei Ying, we can't let any of them go. Lin Feng, alai go. Thus, the police trio left in a hurry once again. Li Zi saw that everything on the table was wiped out by her, so she patted her stomach and said, "Sister Ren, are we going back to the room?" Ren Xiling thought for a while and said, "Let's walk around. I still feel that something is wrong, but I can't say it out loud." "Still, do we still have to climb the ceiling?" Li Zi said with lingering fear. "I want to go to the central control room this time." Ren Xiling stood up and said, "Look at the surveillance. It's me. I'm Mu Enli." The captain picked up the phone in his office. The person who spoke on the other end of the satellite phone was a senior executive of the company. The voice was slightly deep. "Captain Mu, after our impromptu meeting, we decided to let Bayou cruise ship return immediately." The old captain frowned. "Return immediately?" "Yes. The news of the death has spread. Many tourists are speaking on the internet. If they don't come back, it will cause a big problem. So, return immediately. The company will compensate the tourists. You go and announce this decision." The old captain did not say anything more, but simply said, "I got it." After a while, the old captain suddenly turned off the satellite phone, then left the office and came to the control room. He looked at the crew members who were looking at him one by one and said indifferently, "It's nothing. The company just asked about the case. You continue to work. Bayou cruise ship will sail according to the original plan. When will we arrive at Haibei Island?" "Well, we'll arrive in 3 hours." The crew member smiled and said, "Well, it's really a beautiful island. Although I can see it every time I walk this line, I don't get tired of it. I hope that I can relax my mood when I see it later. I'll walk outside. Let me know if there's anything," said the old captain indifferently. "Can I sit down here?" This was the voice that Boss Luo and the servant girl heard. After delivering food to Mrs. Ma, the master and servant continued to wander on the cruise ship. Finally, they came to the deck of the sightseeing area and simply looked at the calm ocean. "Of course." Luoqiu smiled slightly. "There are many empty seats here." So the person who spoke also smiled and sat down. "Not long ago, Boss Luo and Yu Yi met in the corridor. I didn't expect to meet you here." The woman stroked her hair that was blown by the sea breeze and said calmly, "This ship is not big. It's not strange to meet." Luoqiu said casually, "That's fate, right?" The woman smiled softly and blinked. "I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Mu Zi. If you don't mind, you can call me sister, but don't call me auntie." Chapter 577. "By the way, little brother, has the room card been returned?" Mu Zi asked. This was the starting point of the conversation. "It has been sent to the reclaim office. Sorry to trouble you this time. If it weren't for my urgent matter, I would have sent it over." Mu Zi's gaze suddenly softened. Everyone has times when it's inconvenient. Luoqiu looked at a small black spot on the sea. It was probably a small island or something like that. "By the way, you look like you are still a student, right? Did you come here with your girlfriend during the Golden Week?" She seemed to be a very talkative lady, and the topic unconsciously revolved around Luoqiu, but surprisingly, some of Ms. Mu Zi's questions did not cause any negative emotions. Perhaps it was because of her affinity as a woman, or perhaps it was because of her skills as a social person. When the topic was opened, Ms. Muzi would also talk about her own things. If you have a chance, you should really go to the Tibetan plateau to have a look. If you like traveling, I would recommend it. If I have a chance, Luocio nodded with a smile. Ms. Muzi intertwined her fingers and stretched comfortably against the sea breeze. She seemed to be very satisfied with the delicate sea breeze here. She sighed and said, "Well, I have rested enough. Little brother, I have a good time chatting with you. I thought there would be a generation gap since you are so young." Luocio thought for a while and said, "The generation gap is probably formed because there is a debate. It is good to talk about something else. People of different ages can always find common ground." Ms. Muzi was startled and subconsciously said, "However, people can't just talk about things that they like when they are in a relationship. After a long time, there will inevitably be friction. After all, creatures like humans are independent, irreproducible, and complex individuals. If you only have simple contact with people, it may be difficult to find intimate friends." "Thank you for your guidance." Luocio nodded. Ms. Muzi suddenly opened her handbag. "Little brother, take it as a thank you gift for helping me send the room card. I bought this when I traveled to the plateau before the new year. I hope it can bring you luck." A small chain of wooden beads. Luocio curiously took them and saw that each bead was engraved with a Sanskrit word. Each bead was different. Although it looked rough at first glance, it seemed to have an indescribable sense of delicacy upon closer inspection. "The body is like colored glass, clear inside and out," Madame Muzi said softly. "The words on the bead are translated. I hope you can be a worry-free person." "This is too valuable." Luocio shook his head and planned to return the bracelet. Madame Muzi smiled. "It's fate that brought us together. Although I'm not a Buddhist, I quite like this saying. If I can give you a little kindness, and you can share my kindness with others, life will be better." As she spoke, Madame Muzi stood up and gently patted Luocio's shoulder. Then, she looked at Yu Yi, who was beside Luocio, and smiled. "Of course, treat the people around you well. This Madame Muzi is very cultured." The servant girl rarely praised others. "The body is like colored glass, clear inside and out." Luocio played with the wooden bead bracelet in his hand and suddenly smiled. "It seems that this sea trip was really good. Master, this bracelet seems to be attached with a very weak spiritual power. It's a very gentle power." Yu Yi expressed her opinion. "If ordinary people wear it, they will probably feel more refreshed, and there won't be any adverse reactions. It's probably consecrated by an eminent monk." Luocio looked at Yu Yi. "Although I haven't been there, I heard that this kind of small thing consecrated by eminent monks is very popular in the plateau. But it's not easy to find one that can be consecrated." Saying this, the shop owner directly put the bracelet on his wrist. His senses were much stronger than that of ordinary people. The weak energy on the bracelet instantly emitted a sense of calmness, which was easily captured by him. "Muzi Muzi, Li." Luocio smiled slightly and continued to look at the black spot on the sea that was gradually approaching. The tourist brochure placed next to him introduced that this was a small island called Hai Bay. The friction between the lid and the stainless steel wine jug made a metal scraping sound. The old captain had drunk almost half of the vodka inside and felt a warmth in his body. Standing on the deck on the second floor, the old captain looked at the people below. He often watched the tourists on the deck here for dozens of minutes. However, this time was probably the coldest he had seen in the hot golden week in the past 10 years. There was almost no one. There was only a man and a woman who looked like a young couple sitting on the bench on the deck, silently overlooking the sea. It had been a while. The old captain naturally recognized this young couple. This was the young man and woman who traveled with Officer Ma. Silently accompany. The old captain's eyes suddenly became cloudy, as if he was reminiscing about something. He took another sip of liquor and took out the pocket watch he carried with him. There were footsteps behind the old captain. It was the sound of leather shoes hitting the deck. He hardly needed to look back to know who the person was because this was the person he had an appointment with. "Dad, are you looking for me?" The person who came was Mu Qinghai, the deputy captain. The old captain shook the wine bottle in his hand at this time and suddenly sent it to Mu Qinghai. Mu Qinghai was taken aback and frowned. "Dad, are you drinking again? There's not much left." Mu Enli shook his head and suddenly said, "You drink too. We haven't drunk together for a long time." "I don't drink during work hours." Mu Qinghai still shook his head. Mu Enli said, "People like us who have been on the ship all our lives without alcohol, it is equivalent to losing half of our lives. Why don't you understand?" Mu Qinghai still shook his head. "If you drink, you can find a place to drink when you get ashore. As the deputy captain of a ship, I will not touch alcohol on the ship anyway." Mu Enli took a sip happily, turned around and leaned against the railing. The wind almost blew off his hat, so he had to take it off. Mu Enli looked at the badge on the hat and said indifferently, "Everyone on the ship is afraid of me, but I can always find someone who is willing to drink with me. However, you can't find anyone. Whether it is at work or off work, everyone will only stay away from you. Do you know why?" Mu Qinghai said indifferently, "Work has a work system. If the crew has doubts about me, they can raise it with me. After discussion, if I am wrong, I will naturally change. As for staying away, I am just strict with myself. If they are afraid of me, it proves that I have my own prestige on the ship." "Wrong." Mu Enli shook his head. "Wrong. It's not because you have prestige, but because you don't know how to drink. You don't understand that the most important thing on this ship is not me or you, nor the manager, but every sailor on the ship." "Dad, what era is it? The sailor's way of life is outdated." Mu Qinghai argued. "Maybe you can deepen the feelings between you and the crew, but it doesn't improve work efficiency at all. The change rate of the staff on the ship is very big every year. If you want to cultivate feelings one by one, it is too time-consuming. Besides, they are just staff on the ship, not sailors." Mu Qinghai seemed to feel that his words were a bit too much. He took a deep breath, and his tone slowed down. "Dad, when we return this time, you will retire. Now that I've retired, I'll enjoy my life and don't worry about anything else. In the future, I'll do better. So, leave everything in the future to me. Don't worry about it anymore." Mu Enli was silent for a while and suddenly asked, "Qinghai, did you really stay in the central control room all the time last night and never left? Except for walking away when the power went out, no." Mu Qinghai's face didn't change, and then asked, "Why do you ask?" "No." Mu Enli shook his head. "Nothing, that's it. We will arrive at Haibei Island soon. Go and prepare. See how many tourists are willing to get off the ship to sightsee." "Okay." Mu Qinghai nodded, then turned and left. After the old captain stayed here for a while, he planned to leave. Before leaving, the old captain glanced at the young couple sitting on the deck and looking at the sea, and whispered, "If we can stay together for a long time, it's good, it's good." Chapter 578. Who are the two women in the video? Outside the monitoring room, a crew member walked over while drinking coffee and asked the crew member standing outside the door, who was originally in charge of complex monitoring. "Probably, they are also policemen?" The crew member shrugged and said, "Anyway, they are with the officer Ma. They said that they wanted to see the surveillance video again, so I let them see it." "Don't we need to tell the captain?" The crew member with the coffee asked curiously. "Anyway, the police have to go back and forth several times to collect evidence. When we see the captain or the deputy captain, we can tell them. It's up to you." The crew member with the coffee smiled and said, "I'm getting off work. I'll change my clothes and go to the island." "Go ahead. I guess I won't get off work when you all come back." The crew member yawned. "I'll go and get a cup of coffee." In the monitoring room, Ren Xiling and Li Zi were watching the video of a certain place attentively. Everything else was put aside. The scene of the murder, the corridor where the victim, Qian Guoyang, walked. Renziling had rewound and fast-forwarded it several times. Sure enough, Renziling adjusted the time axis of the video to about 3:00 last night. It's here. Lizzie, do you see it? Lizzie nodded and said, Sister Ren, this picture is jammed. If you slow it down like this, it will be more obvious. Then Renziling fast-forwarded it again to 6:00 in the morning, and then said, It's also jammed here. 6:00 is the time to change shift. Go and look at the video of other places at 3:00 and 6:00. Renziling frowned and ordered at this time. Soon after, Lizzie turned back and said, Sister Ren, all the videos of this time period are really jammed. Renziling sat down at this time, looking at the ceiling with her hands behind her head, and thought, when Qian Guoyang died, it should be about 8:45 in the morning. The power went out at 4:00. Sister Ren, why is this jamming? Lizzie asked puzzledly. Renziling said, if it's just a picture, it might be a problem with the machine. But if all of them are like this, then I'm afraid that someone has covered up the video of this time period and used old videos or something. Why are you so sure? Lizzie asked curiously, must it be to cover this section with something else? Renziling began to twist the time axis and arrived at about 5:00 in the morning. The scene she chose was the corridor where they were staying this time. Renziling said while fast-forwarding, see? I'm not here at all, which proves that this image is fake. But weren't you sleeping at that time? How could you be in the corridor? Renziling blinked and said, the soundproofing conditions in the room are too good. I couldn't hear anything. I just got up and went to the bathroom, so I came out and listened to the situation. In the end, my brat's room was extremely quiet. Instead, it was old Ma's room that was so noisy that it was like a demolition. Damn, this old thing actually has such a fierce side to him. My God, that pill! It's really a good thing for this old guy. She really never gave up hope. However, no wonder Sister Ren was so angry with Sir Ma when she woke up this morning. Do you have any opinion? Renziling stared at Lizzie. Lizzie quickly shook her head and quickly changed the topic. Sister Ren, according to what you said, this video is really replaced. But who is it? Why is it replaced? Besides, why is there a video of the past? The replacement is from 3 to 6:00. 6:00 is the right time to change shifts, so the crew will ignore the things in the video or abnormal places when changing shift. Renziling pondered. That is to say, the person who replaced the video is at least familiar with the crew's schedule, and there is a video of the past. Lizzie, go and ask the guy outside how often these surveillance videos are automatically cleaned. Is there a file before the cleaning? Generally, where the file is kept and who can get it. Oh, okay. Lizzie quickly said, it seems that we can't go down to the island below. Renziling snorted and said, it's not a real tourist area. It's just a small island on the sea. There are stones and woods on it. There is nothing there. What is there to visit? Seeing that Lizzie went out to ask something, Renziling began to mutter again. Old Ma, you are really uncultured. You didn't even find the place where there was a lag. However, there was only that crew member in the monitoring room at that time, and Mu Qinghai who stayed behind. Will the replacement be one of them? No, there was a power outage in the middle. The power outage was probably to divert them. If there was about 10 minutes, it was not too late to change the video. Who is it? And Renziling suddenly climbed on the monitor, pressed the buttons quickly, and looked at the picture on one of the screens. She was just curious because what she saw on the screen was the old captain, Mu Enli. He seemed to have just come out of his room, carrying a black handbag in his hand. This was actually nothing, but the old captain's action made sub-editor Ren feel a little uncomfortable. After the old captain on the screen came out of the room, he first looked around before locking the door and leaving normally. Why does it look like he is afraid of being discovered? Is it necessary? Renziling widened her eyes again. She saw that after the old captain disappeared from the camera, a figure suddenly passed by. Wearing a pink coat and sunglasses, she hurried past. Ren Xiling subconsciously picked up the phone and called Ma Haud. Hello, old Ma, where are you? The computer room, catching people. Fei Ying probably doesn't dare to stay in a crowded place, so he must be hiding. What are you looking for me for? I'm busy. Old Ma, let me ask you. Ren Xiling suddenly asked. The woman you chased out before, how tall do you think she is? How heavy is she? How tall? About 723 meters, right? I remember she is about the same height as me. Ma Haud thought and said, she should be on the thin side. What about shoes? What do the shoes look like? Boots, I remember they are black boots, and there are star-hanging buttons on the boot. Ma Haud frowned. Why are you asking these? Old Ma? I think I found this woman. Ren Xiling said quickly, hurry up. You guys go and follow the old captain. This woman seems to be following Mu Enli. In addition, I have some important discoveries. I will tell you later. You catch this woman first. Got it. Lin Feng, come with me. Ma Haud quickly hung up the phone. Officer Ma? Why are you looking for me? Mu Enli frowned subconsciously after receiving a call from Ma Haud. Captain, where are you now? I plan to get off the ship for a walk. Mu Enli said calmly. Get off the ship? When did you get to the shore? Ma Haud asked in amazement. The old captain said calmly, it's not the shore. It's just an isolated island in the middle of the route. It's not big, about 1 kilometer. It's a scenic spot. Captain, the prisoner is still on the ship. How can you just let people get on the ship? If the prisoner takes the opportunity to leave, it won't work. Ma Haud suddenly objected. The old captain said, Officer Ma, there is nothing on this isolated island, not even a small boat. Where can the prisoner escape to? Can this person swim in the vast sea? Besides, we have registered all the people who get off the ship. When they get on the ship later, if anyone is missing, wouldn't it be better to lock onto the suspect? This makes sense, but you should slow down first. Even if you get off the ship, I want someone to follow you. Ma Haud said, my other batch of support will arrive in 30 minutes. How about you wait for another 30 minutes? Then, okay. Mu Enli nodded and did not mean to oppose Ma Haud. By the way, Officer Ma, why are you looking for me? Captain, listen to me now, but you can't show any surprised expression. Stay calm and listen while walking. Do you understand? Officer Ma then said quickly, I suspect that someone is following you. It may be a key figure in this case. Captain Mu Enli, I need you to do something for me. That is, bring the person who is following you to a narrower place. It's best if there is no way to escape. Do you understand? I understand. Mu Enli responded softly. He didn't even look behind him as he continued to walk forward. Then, he turned a corner and entered another corridor. Sister Ren. I got it all. Li Zi walked quickly into the monitoring room and was about to speak. But at this time, the screen in the monitoring room turned black instantly. Not only that, but the lights here also dimmed. The two hurriedly walked out and saw that all the instruments in the entire monitoring room had stopped working. What the hell happened? Maybe there is a problem with the electric well. Let's go and see right away. Fei Ying licked his lips. After cutting the last wire with the knife in his hand, he put it on another wire. There was a fierce spark at the junction of the wires, and then there was a burst of smoke. Now you can't catch me, right? It will take at least half a day to fix this place. You be *TCH, officer? If you have the ability, come and catch me and dry me in the sun. With that said, Fei Ying quickly pulled the chain of his trench coat, put on a hat, lowered his head, and left the electric room before the crew arrived. Fei Ying rubbed his palms, showing a hint of greed. He smirked and said, then, it's time to go treasure hunting. Master, it seems that we can't get off the ship for the time being. We have to wait for 30 minutes. Just in front of the elevator to get off the ship, Yu Yi whispered in Luoqiu's ear. Not only the master and servant stayed here, but there were also tourists who planned to get off the ship. Of course, there were not as many as expected. At a glance, there were only about 100 people. It seems to be earlier than expected. Luocio suddenly said, Yu Yi, what do you think this proves? Master? Luocio chuckled and said, It proves that, as bystanders, it is great that we can be in this rotating world. A faint coolness suddenly flowed out of the wooden bead in his hand. Chapter 579. If there was anyone who was most familiar with Bayou cruise ship, it would naturally be the old captain who had worked on Bayou cruise ship for 30 years. The walking map. This was another title of the old captain among the crew. No one was more familiar with every place on this ship than the old captain. At this time, the old captain, who was carrying a black handbag, quietly walked into a spiral staircase. After opening the fire door, Mu Enli was about to go up, but he received another call at this time. The crew informed him that the electric room in the central control room was maliciously destroyed. Even the backup power was cut off. Now the entire control room was in a state of paralysis. The old captain frowned and still climbed up the spiral staircase. He even deliberately spoke a little louder on the phone. Don't worry. Find someone to repair the electric room immediately. It is now docked at High Bay Island. It will take some time. Take this time to see how far the repair can be done. I will come over and take a look soon. With that said, Mu Enli had walked to the end of the spiral staircase, opened the fire door here, and left. The moment the fire escape door closed, a motionless figure stuck to the wall at the bottom of the stairs began to move quickly. The action was extremely fast. The figure quietly opened the door and poked his head out to take a look. He saw that Mu Enli had walked a distance away and was about to disappear around the corner. The figure flashed out of the fire door without saying a word. At first, just as the figure was about to follow again, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Bang! That was the sound of the fire door being closed after being hit with a great force. The person who hit the door was Sir Ma. Ma Howd was seen leaning against the door at this time. He sneered, You can't get away this time. Who the hell are you, woman? Why are you eavesdropping on us? This figure that came with the old captain. The woman quickly glanced at it, but stepped back step by step without saying a word. But just as she took a few steps back and turned to run, at the end of the corridor, Lin Feng had already rushed out in an instant. He opened his hands like a goalkeeper in a restricted area. The woman suddenly stopped. Ma Howd and Lin Feng attacked from the front and back, gradually approaching the woman. I want to arrest you now. You'd better cooperate. The woman suddenly smiled and unbuttoned her coat one by one in front of Ma Howd, revealing a pair of rather strong balls. It was actually a low-cut dress. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you, I won't accept this kind of behavior. Ma Howd snorted angrily and pointed at him. But this woman only took off her coat. She then stretched out her hand toward Ma Howd, her fingers curled back and forth, looking completely provocative. Lin Feng, don't let this woman anger you. We are a team. Let's do it together. Sir Ma was smart enough not to be provoked by such a simple action. Without saying a word, the two police officers flew towards the woman one after the other. Obviously, Sir Ma, who had no martial arts background, used a move that no one knew where he learned from. It looked like a black tiger steals its heart. As for Officer Lin, who had graduated from school, he looked much more like a Sanda fighter. However, this woman easily dodged Ma Howd's attack and pressed Sir Ma's head with one hand, forcing him to lower his head. After that, she lifted her back foot and gave a side kick to Lin Feng, who was behind her. This kick was extremely fierce. Lin Feng didn't have time to dodge and was hit by it. He was stunned and moved back a few steps. Following this spinning movement, the woman didn't stop moving. She turned her body and bent her long legs instantly, directly hooking Ma Howd's neck with her legs. Damn it! Ma Howd, who was good at shooting but not good at fighting, had become more and more swollen in recent years. At this time, he could only bend his waist and grab the woman's thighs with both hands. His action was quite funny. Lin Feng threw his numb arm and took a deep breath. After a few punches, he resumed his Sanda posture, indicating that he could still fight against 10 people. Wow, old Ma! You're so unlucky! Behind them, on the other side of the corridor, Ren Xiling and Lizzie ran over. Subeditor Ren, who adhered to the principle of insulting each other, subconsciously didn't let go of the opportunity in front of her. Damn it! Come and help me! I can't breathe! Ma Haud shouted with a pale and painful face. Ren Xiling clenched her fists without saying anything and sneered. I haven't fought for a long time since I turned over a new leaf. We're all women, I won't be merciful. Lizzie, step back, I'm going to unlock the seal. What seal did you have? Wasn't it because you smoked, drank, permed your hair and sent a few boys to the hospital? Lizzie stepped back silently with a face full of regret. At this time, this woman suddenly let go of Ma Haud and stepped back with a smile. She didn't seem to be afraid of being besieged by so many people. Sir Ma, who had recovered his breath, touched his neck, then shook the fat on his body and rushed to this woman again. After Ren Xiling joined in the attack, a total of 3 people seemed to make this woman a little strenuous. Of course, it was just a little. She still calmly dealt with the attacks of the 3 people. Damn it, old Ma, don't block me. I almost kicked her. Damn it. If it weren't for you, I would have crushed her to death. Madam, don't kick randomly. I'm here. However, without any tacit understanding, the fighting strength of these 3 people plummeted not long after. The besieged woman suddenly saw an opportunity. She suddenly pressed her hands on Ren Xiling's shoulder and jumped up. Unexpectedly, she flipped over in front of Ren Xiling and even kicked Subeditor Ren's back heavily at the moment of landing. Ren Xiling's body was suddenly kicked toward Ma Haud and Lin Feng. The 3 people suddenly fell to the ground. At this time, the woman turned around and suddenly waved her hand, then quickly retreated. She had broken the trap and there was no way for her to retreat. This woman, who didn't say a word from beginning to end, turned around and ran away at a very fast speed. The 3 people who got up from the ground couldn't help but explode with anger when they saw that they couldn't catch up with her. Lizzie saw this scene, shook her head slightly and sighed. Then she quietly blew out a breath. On the way the woman ran, a small ice ring was condensed from the ground, which happened to be on the woman's ankle and tripped her instantly. The woman seemed to have never thought that such a situation would happen. When she realized it, her body had fallen to the ground uncontrollably. Then Subeditor Ren, a ruthless person who would seek revenge, directly rushed up and pressed on the woman's body without saying anything. Lin Feng and Ma Haud also arrived later. The 3 of them fought hard and finally subdued the woman. Gotcha! The handcuffs were directly handcuffed on the woman's hand and then connected to Sir Ma's hand. Ma Haud snorted, "Let's see where you can go this time. Stand up." Ma Haud raised her arm forcefully. The woman also stood up and looked at the floor of the corridor in confusion. But she saw nothing. Lizzie pretended to know nothing, walking over while eating a lollipop. Wow! Sister Ren, you are so awesome! Child's play. Ren Xiling rubbed her nose and said, "Anyway, I am the existence of all the martial arts groups in the university." Lizzie clapped her hands. What else could she do? If I hadn't tripped, the 3 of you wouldn't have been able to catch me. The woman suddenly shook her head and said indifferently. Ma Haud didn't care and said with a righteous face, "That's because justice has a long arm. Justice will prevail over evil. Those who do bad things will be punished by God." Whatever you say. I'll just consider myself unlucky. The woman shook her head but suddenly smiled and said, "But Ma Haud, are you on a diet? Your belly seems to have increased a lot." "I don't need you to care." "Wait, how do you know my name?" Sir Ma was suddenly stunned. The woman looked at Ren Xiling and said, "Xiling, good job. Your bones are still there. Not bad." Ren Xiling was stunned, and then she frowned. The more she frowned, the deeper she frowned. I seem to have heard this voice somewhere. And I don't know why I'm so angry when I hear it. Ha ha. The woman took off the sunglasses on her face, and grabbed her hair at the same time. It was actually a wig. She then touched her face and tore off 2 layers of skin from both sides of her cheek. She sighed and said, "Phew, I feel much better now. Long time no see, old Ma Xiling. And this? I don't know her. Is she new here?" Lin Feng looked at Sir Ma and Ren Xiling in astonishment, but saw their expressions were as colorful as a rainbow. "Ali!" Ren Xiling and Ma Hao exclaimed at the same time. The woman called Ali was now communicating with Sir Ma. Lizzie whispered to Ren Xiling, "Sister Ren, who is this Ali? Why do you keep staring at her as if you want to eat her?" Ren Xiling squinted her eyes. She used to be in the same team as old Ma. Later, she was transferred to another team. I don't know where she went, and I didn't expect that she would show up again. However, this damn woman is a damn slut. She seduces other people's husbands. Seduce what? Lizzie was stunned. Ren Xiling pointed at herself and said, "Seduce my husband. Then wasn't that Luochio's father? Xiling, are you speaking ill of me again?" Ali looked at her with a smile. She was very intellectual, just like a mature elder sister. How could it be? Subeditor Ren was also full of joy. She walked forward. "I'm so happy to see Sister Ali. Sister Ali, I haven't seen you for several years. You have more wrinkles. You need to take care of yourself. At your age, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to get married." Ha! Really? Seriously, Xiling, you too. Look at how flabby your face is. You shouldn't stay up all night, right? Thank you for your concern. Sister Ali, look at your face. Is it too hard? Look, your breasts are so small that they can't be seen. Yes, it's a little hard. Unlike you, your breasts are so big that they can't hold up. Are they sagging? Thank you for your concern. Me too, thank you for your concern. Officer Ma swallowed his saliva and broke out in cold sweat as he looked at the 2 men who were so close to each other that there seemed to be lightning flashing between their eyes. "Sir Ma?" Lin Feng asked in a low voice. "Quick, find a topic. Once these 2 women start fighting, it's going to be a disaster." Ma Hao quickly pushed Lin Feng away. "So why me?" Lin Feng could only sigh. Then, he felt an inexplicable pressure. Stiffening his body, he said, "Speaking of which, Miss Ali, why are you here? And why are you tailing the captain? And why are you even bugging the place where we eat? Can you explain?" "Xiling, let's talk another day? After all, business is more important. Of course, I'm a sensible person. Why would I care? But Xiling, it's not convenient for you to listen to what I'm going to say next. Can you avoid arousing suspicion?" Ali said with a smile. Ren Xiling pulled Lizzie to the side and leaned against the wall. She looked like she was mumbling. State security." Ma Hao opened her eyes wide and looked at the small notebook Ali took out. She couldn't believe it, but then she realized, so it's this department. I was wondering, when you were transferred, you didn't say where you were going. I asked around for a long time, but I couldn't find anything. Old Ma, I can't hide it from you. Ali shook her head and said seriously, "But even if you know, you can only pretend that you didn't see me after you get off the ship. Do you understand? And this newbie?" Ma Hao nodded seriously. As for Lin Feng immediately covered his ears and said, "Well, how about I go there too?" He looked at the place where Ren Xiling was. "No, I will temporarily requisition the 2 of you." Ali said seriously, "Ma Hao, Lin Feng, I received information that there are foreign agents on this Bayou cruise ship. They are planning an activity that is unfavorable to our country. Now I want to officially requisition you to help me solve this incident. I promise to obey the organization's orders." Sir Ma suddenly straightened his back and raised his hand to salute. "Well, have you found the agent?" You followed the captain. Is he? Ollie frowned and said, I'm not sure, but this matter is more complicated. In fact, I have found one of the agents and followed him all the way here. But I didn't expect him to be dead. Could it be Qian Guoyang? Ma Houde was shocked.